Yeah, apparently. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to call this meeting to order. Eve, are we live? All right. We're going to go ahead and call our first interim meeting of the Joint Transportation Highways Military Affairs Committee to order on Thursday, May 1st. Eve, before we get going anything further, can I get a roll call, please?
Senator Anderson.
Here.
Senator Brennan.
Excused?
Senator Cooper.
Oh, she's actually walking in right here.
Here.
Senator Cooper.
Here.
Senator Kolb.
Present.
Representative Banks.
Excused.
Representative Geringer.
Here.
Representative Larson. Representative McCann.
Absent.
Representative Nicholas. Representative Posey.
Here.
Representative Tarver.
Here.
Representative Wiley.
Excused.
Co-Chairman Pappas.
Here.
Chairman Brown.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Eve. Second thing that we've got on our agenda is to do acceptance of rules. And committee, for those new members that we have on this committee, probably the biggest thing to recognize is what dictates a quorum and how bills are passed out of this committee as sponsored bills for Joint Transportation's committee-sponsored bills. Without any, or with any objection, the current rules as they stand is basically a 50% vote of the entire quorum constitutes passage. There have been some changes in the past where it's a 50% passage of each house. That has proven to be a very troublesome way to get bills that actually have some contentious deals going through. And so then what you have is people bring House bills or Senate files. So as it stands right now, the way the rules are written is this would be a 50% of the quorum at hand when a bill is voted on. And then the rest of the rules go into effect just as we've always done. Those were provided. Is there any questions on the rules or any motions?
Motion to adopt.
So moved by Representative Larson, seconded by Senator Anderson. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting the rules, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no?
No.
Okay, the rules are adopted. Before we go any further, we'll do some opening remarks. Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, this interim, we are only going to be meeting 4 days. It's our intent to meet 1 day this meeting, 2 days at our second meeting, and 1 day on our third meeting. As directed by the Management Council, we needed to shorten the days by 4, or by 2 to 4 days. So I think we'll be able to do that. Certainly one of our biggest topics is going to be highway funding. And unfortunately, this meeting, we will not be able to have the CFO from YDOT with us. So while I believe the director will mention funding, we're going to push the major work for YDOT funding into the middle meeting. Also, since we are going to, typically the chair and co-chair will do a day apiece as chair. We've decided that on the 1 day meetings, we'll each chair a half a day. So that's kind of what we're going to do. And I think we've decided you're going to take this morning, which is great, and I'll take the military this afternoon. So other than that, I want to welcome all the new members to our committee. Those of you who haven't been on transportation before, I think we'll have a good committee here. I'm pleased to see the folks that are on this committee, and I think that we'll get some good work done. We're intending on not repeating some of the mistakes in the past where we've pushed out so many bills that they've never been vetted very well. So the co-chairman and I have decided we're going to just look at bills that are important and that we think will be able to see the light of day. outside of that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. I'll just, my opening remarks, very similar. One of the things that this committee has been pretty popular for is always being either number one or number two on committee-sponsored bills as we come out of the interim, and we typically have a pretty good rate of passage. A lot of the bills that we do are very small, one-liners, maybe 2 pages, those types of bills. And so if we have those, we'll work on those. But the big deal that we have, as directed by Management Council, we really have to focus in on what the priorities of this committee are. And so the co-chairman and I, along with Management Council, we kept our priorities the same as what we discussed during our last meeting back in March. It seems like it was just 2 days ago, but I think it's very important for us to recognize that if you have an idea and you want it to be a committee-sponsored bill, there's going to be a need for you to address that with the chairman before you make the motion to have a committee-sponsored bill, if at all possible. That also goes for anybody who is interested in bringing bills from the outside and having the committee sponsor a bill. Please speak with the chairman if you're interested in having something like that come up, because we really have to be conscientious of our time. With today being a pretty much informational session, we're going to be doing our heavy lifting work the next 2 meetings, and those will be back up here in Casper. And then our last meeting will basically be doing the fine tooth cleaning. So with that, yes, Mr. Co-Chairman?
I also want to take this opportunity to welcome 2 of our commissioners here from the Transportation Commission, Commissioner Lyman, Commissioner Willicks. Thank you for attending. I get to work with these gentlemen every month. Actually, last couple of months, I've only been able to see you online, but anyhow, I appreciate that you're here. Congratulations on taking the helm of the commission. So, by the way, I think YDOT needs to update their page. It still shows Susan as the chairperson. So anyhow, I just wanted to welcome them.
All right, with that, committee, we've got a pretty full agenda. It is my anticipation to try to get us out of here a few minutes early today. I'm hoping that we can be out of here by about 4, get everybody back home and back to your homes here relatively quickly today. So with that, we'll start off a few minutes early. We're already 7 minutes ahead of schedule. And that'll put us up to YDOT, and we're going to do an agency overview. Director, please come on forward. And if you look here, committee, we're basically going to be doing a stair step. For those of you that are seasoned veterans, this is going to be a lot of rehashing, a lot of good information. But for those of you that are new to the committee and may not have the background, this is really good time for you to dive into the information that has been presented, ask questions so we can wrap our head around what it is that we're trying to accomplish here this interim. So, Director, please introduce yourself. Welcome. Yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Darren Westby, Director of Wyoming Department of Transportation. I'd like to do some introductions. I know the co-chair introduced the chair and the vice chair, but Brant Lyman out of the southwest corner of the state is our chairman of the commission. And then Jim Willicks is our vice chair out of the Casper over to the border area of the district. And I know you already gave him the nod, but I wanted to introduce him. With me also from the agency is Taylor Rossetti, the deputy director. Keith Fulton is our chief engineer. Nate Smolinski is our chief technical officer. Tim Cameron is our colonel. Hadn't seen him by the time I walked up here. Rodney Fryer is here to represent the fiscal side of the house on budget, and Misty Zimmerman is here with driver services. And so I think that was all. Oh, Mark Ann, who was the District 2 engineer, he has now been selected to be the Assistant Chief of Engineering Operations. So he's down in Cheyenne now. Welcome to Cheyenne. But Mr. Chairman, as you said, we're shorting down YDOT's topic this month. We have 2 hours. We have 6 topics. break that down, it's about 20 minutes a topic, so we'll be talking pretty fast. I told the crew that try to make your presentation about 15 minutes long or shorter, give you all some time to ask questions and try to keep you all on task or at least on time going through this. I really want to start off with thanking this committee as well as the body as a whole for the successes that WYDOT has had this year during the session. There was a lot of bills. Obviously, you guys had a lot more bills. We tracked about 88 of them. Some contact or another to our agency. Out of those 88, 34 passed. Probably one of the significant ones was the funding bill. And again, really appreciate everybody's efforts on helping us start to tackle our needs. What I'll do, Mr. Chairman, is start with an agency overview. In your packet, there should be a slide or a piece of paper that has our organizational chart. Obviously starts with the governor and then horizontally with AG and then the commissions that we have. We have the Transportation Commission, Aeronautics Commission, and the Public Safety Communications Commission. Under my agency, I have the Civil Rights, Internal Review, Management Services, and Public Affairs. Then there's 6 other divisions within the agency. We have Chief Engineer, which is probably the lion's share, the size of our agency that has the engineering, planning, and then operational side, a lot of the field stuff that you see around the state. The next division is the CFO. They oversee the budgets, contracts, grants, fuel tax, procurement. And then there's Taylor Rossetti oversees, on top of being the deputy director, he oversees the support services division. They do the compliance and driver services, human relations, motor vehicle services, and then we have a training arm as well to help develop our team. The Highway Patrol is the next division. They, what you imagine with the Highway Patrol operation, field ops, and professional standards. Aeronautics division, they obviously oversee the 40 plus airports that we have around the state. Air service, engineering, construction of those airports, flight operations with our own aircraft, and then unmanned aircraft. And then the last division that we have is the Chief Technical Office. They do GIS, all the electronic information science that you see along the roads, variable speed limit, all the weather-related data comes back to them. They do IT. They partner with ETS to help augment some of the assistance that we need for our agency, and then obviously the WILE-LINK or the emergency communications. Within the agency, there's 47 different programs under each of those 6 divisions, and so they're, as you can imagine, an agency this size it's pretty significant of our breadth of what we do and how we do it. The next page is employment summary tables. This is something that we talk with the commission on a regular basis. When I came on in '23, we had 345 vacancies. And so we really work towards bringing this to light every month, talking about where our vacancies are, where our hot points of vacancies are, and how do we work towards addressing them. So this sheet is what our commission sees on a monthly basis, and it really helps us track our vacancies. We have 2,051 authorized positions, just 2,001 actual full-time employee authorized positions, and then about 50 AWACS. Currently, we're sitting at about 1,815 filled full-time employees positions. So that leaves us about 236 vacancies in the full-time sector. That's just shy of 12% vacancy on the full-time positions. We're obviously working pretty hard over the last week. Cut about 100, a little over 100, 110 positions, vacancies out of that 345 that we started with in 2023, which is a good step forward, but we still obviously have those 236 positions that we need to try to work towards filling. We're always going to have attrition. We're always going to have turnover. In an agency this big, there's always people capable of retiring, capable of getting some experience and moving on. And that just is the nature of the beast. But we're working hard on brand management, desirability of the agency, what we do. We understand that what we do, not everybody can do. You think about a snowplow driver. I know I can drive a car, but there's no way I would want to, let alone be able to pilot a snowplow during a blizzard and ensuring that. So there's a lot of that, trying to figure out how to shift some of that sales pitch of why it could be cool to work for WYDOT, all the way up and down the line, whether it's a road maintainer or an engineer, mechanic, obviously in the highway patrol. The next sheet is the WYDOT employment charts. There's a 25-year comparison. We have vacancy percentage by year. That's the top chart. As you can see, pre-2020, roughly 7% is about our average. Low, we got down to about 4.5% vacancy in 2012. Post-2020, we're sitting at an average of around 12% vacancies. We peaked at our high in 2023 at 17%, like I said before. I think realistically, if we really wanted to put a hard number on where I think with attrition, with our hireability, the candidates that are out there, I'm around the 7 to 9% is probably that sweet spot of vacancy with this. Just being realistic with turnover and retirements. That's one of the probably the biggest concerns I have, is the amount of people that we have within our agency that have been capable of retiring within 5 years ago, some even more than that, which I think is also a testament to what they get to do on a day-to-day basis, their love for the agency and pride and passion of what they get to do for the citizens of the state. So we're happy with that. The next chart down is the average positions versus average filled positions. In 2011, we had 2,081 authorized positions, and at most of the point, they were roughly filled at 7% vacancy. In 2012, that we bumped up, like I said, to that 4.5% vacancy, which is obviously there was a lot good going on with the hireability. In 2014, we dropped down to 2,064 authorized position. And in 2021 to present, we dropped another 13 positions. So in the past 25 years, we've dropped 33 positions over those 25 years. The next pages within that section are things that we see on a monthly basis within the agency. It gives us an opportunity to just see a statewide graphic of where our vacancies are, where potential problem areas are. So the first one is March of 2023, like when I came on. You can see there's a lot of yellow and some purple in there. You don't want to see purple, and you don't necessarily like to see yellow. And so our goal is to eliminate the purple and decrease how many yellow dots or squares we have. So the next page is April, basically 2 years later. And as you can just see from a comparison color dot or square on there, we've made pretty good headway moving the agency in that regard. We still have some crew vacancies in some of the areas that you can imagine. Some of those would be tough to fill regardless. And so we're working with our commission and working with our districts to see what it's going to take to try to get those positions filled, to ensure that we can successfully manage our mission and put forward the best product that we can. And so, again, we're really working on morale, working on the desirability. And like I said before, we do truly understand that not everybody can do what we do, and how do we modify that into a sales pitch of maybe we can go target the people that have some significant abilities and desirability to be a snowplow driver, and how do we entice them to put in an application to do so. And so really working on pride and impact of our agency, and it seems to be working. And so, Mr. Chairman, that really, I'm trying to keep us on track. That's kind of a whirlwind tour of YDOT at a very high level, as well as where we're at with vacancies and employment.
Thank you, Director. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, so going back to page 4 there on your authorized positions and field positions. So I just want to make sure that I'm reading that right, that compared to over a decade ago, your 30-plus authorized positions less, and you've remained flat for the last 5 years. And so when we have concerns about agency growth, you've actually decreased and remained level. And then I've got a follow-up, but am I reading that right?
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Thank you, and Representative, that is correct. We have dropped over the last 25 years, 33, 34 positions and full-time positions.
Thank
Trying to
you.
keep that in check.
Follow-up, thank you. And then if you could go back to page 2 and help me understand on the aeronautics side, you've got 18 authorized positions and then 19 current positions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I had the exact same question. How do we have that? What happened, we have an individual that works in aeronautics that is in the military and is on temporary duty. And so we got approval to basically double fill that position. So we were able to still perform our mission while this person's on a potentially 5-year deployment. And so we're working to ensure that that individual still has the legal right to their job when they come back from military service, while still being able to perform what we need to perform within that division.
Follow-up?
Follow-up, so when you say we have permission, or tell me how that works. I'm just wanting to make sure that because that's very appropriate in my mind, but the legislature authorizes it, so did you get approval there, or how does that work? And if it isn't, I think we need to investigate a mechanism to allow that type of.
So before we go down that path, I want to be very, very cautious. I don't disagree with you, Representative Larson. That's a JAC portion of this. As much as I would love to get into that on our side of this committee, that's also a commission issue as well on how they shift their budgets. But I do believe that this is a worthy discussion. We typically in this committee don't have the ability to get into the nitty-gritty details of how the agency runs, but I do believe this is a worthy question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative. I'll probably ask Taylor to come sit up here because he was the one that helped work this out. But from what I understand, we had one of our vacancies that we were able to utilize and fill in that position. Obviously, that position is not being filled in the division that's at, but I'll let Taylor correctly answer the question.
Rossetti, please introduce yourself, sir.
Taylor Rossetti, Deputy Director of YDOT. Mr. Chairman and Representative Larson, the director is correct. So what we did was we found a like-leveled position that wasn't being utilized on the commission side of the budget. And then we worked with ANI and HRD to make sure that they were comfortable with the double fill. Again, as the director mentioned, the particular individual is on a potential 5-year leave. So, but yeah, we did that through the appropriate process with HRD and state budget to ensure that we weren't increasing salary line items or anything.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Anybody else? Senator Culp, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question in general about some of the remote areas. I know those are the places where you're lacking personnel. And it's probably always going to, I think, be that way because the challenge of recruiting folks to work in those areas. I guess, what are your plans to improve that situation when it comes to recruiting folks in those, those really small, as I'll just call them, areas of along the state? Or are we just going to have to accept in a lower level or maybe move people over there temporarily? Just how are we going to handle that? Because it looks like it's not getting any better over time. And just what are your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Senator, thanks for the question. It's something that we work on a regular basis. For instance, I think one of the solutions that we have is providing housing in some of those areas as an enticement to get people interested in coming to that. Muddy Gap is a great example. If you look at 2023, it was a very solid purple. And if you look at it now, it's a yellow. And so we're able to put in and provide housing, which was an enticement. We were able to find some people to work there. It's not the only solution or the solution that we're proposing. We're also probably going to be working with HRD, A&I to see about, being competitive. That's the other issue that we're having, is trying to be competitive with the market force that we're competing in to try to ensure that we can get the appropriate people. And I talk to the crew on a regular basis. I do not want to fill warm bodies. That's not going to be helpful for the state of Wyoming. We want to have people that have experience and capabilities and have the desire to work here, not just warm bodies, because we can all attest one good person can really degrade a existing team. And so trying to ensure that we work to instill that kind of pride and passion in our employees to try to be the best recruiters that we can have to recruit to those positions. You're correct, though. When you're out in the middle of, Arlington, for instance, and I'm sitting here looking at, we have, at the end of this snow season, Arlington sitting at a square teal, which is 0% vacancy, which if you look back before, it was not that necessarily great. And so we're continuing to work down those paths to try to make the desirability better. But one of the ways that we're looking at is potential housing, trying to work on competitive wage.
Yes, Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director, for being up here and explaining things to us. I guess one question is, what impact are these job vacancies having on your mission or work getting done?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, thank you for the question. I'll go back to pride and passion. I think we're our own worst enemies. Our team is, because they are very prideful in this section of road that they get to maintain. So they will work long hours, and they get overtime. They'll get compensated for it, but that's time away from their family. Work-life balance is probably not the best. And so, but I think from a mission perspective, they perform quite well, but it's the pride and passion that's probably driving it through. I know our engineering teams were the other kind of part that we're down, but I think on a national level, engineering is, we're seeing civil engineering not be the biggest attractor in the colleges. And so we're working to try to boost the importance of civil engineering in the colleges to try to make sure that we're pumping out some engineers that will help. So our designers are behind. They worked hard on just being out in front with preservation projects, but we don't have any, and I'll talk a little bit later on shelf projects of expansion and capacity projects. We don't have any true shelf-ready projects except for one. So we're going to be working towards that, but that means we need more engineers to help us out with that. And so from a mission perspective, I think we're holding our own. It's not exactly where we want to be, but like I said, I think everybody just rolls up their sleeves and works harder, but at some point, fatigue is going to join in, as well as burnout, and I just don't know how long we're going to be able to go down this path, but I'm pretty proud of the team and the efforts that they work as hard as they work for what our mission is, and pretty proud of the group. Thank you for that question.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess another question would be, has there been any exploration of workforce sharing agreements or public-private, kind of contracting to help alleviate some of the peak times, whether it be in maintenance or in design, or something that could be done to work with either city or county, or even on the private sector to kind of help bolster what you need?
Mr. Chairman, and I might ask Taylor if he has any follow-up on this, but I know there's conversations happening when the need arises. The problem is, to your point, right, we have a major storm. It could be north, it could be south, it could be central. The Mark Ann job is to kind of quarterback that and make sure that his district engineers are assisting other districts. If the storm's on I-80, we'll send some people down from Casper, from the Cody region, to get them some more help to fight and battle the storm. From a private perspective, we do have a contract, I think, well, I don't know when it ends, but on Teton Pass with that 11.5% detour, the grade on that detour, we know our guys couldn't just sit up there the whole time. That's only 700 foot of road. And so we did, I think, contract with a private company that will just sat there all winter long and made sure that that was a passable road with it being so steep. But there's ideas and thoughts out there to do that. I know I've talked with Representative Tarver as well. He had similar questions about, could you look to utilizing some private contractors to do this? We have similar things with our electronics, and my only concern is the pride and passion at the same level with the contract versus somebody that's working? It could be. I don't want to diminish that potential, but when you're under contract, you'll go do the contract and then you'll leave. Our guys will stay on it until it's completely done. So I have the thought of continuing down that path, but right now I'm not 100% sure that it's going to be financially feasible either, because it costs more to contract out than to hire internally. But a lot of good conversation around it, but we'll continue down that path of investigation.
Committee, any further questions on the agency overview? Okay. Director, let's go ahead and roll into everybody's favorite topic, engineering.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, since I'm standing here or sitting here, can I just go through a quick high level on the funding side of the House?
Yeah. And committee,
then-
I just want to reiterate, as co-chairman had mentioned earlier, we'll certainly go there, but the heavy hitting questions, probably if we have some major questions, we'll probably want to hold off on the heavier stuff. But yeah, certainly if you want to do 100,000 foot
Mr.
overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to try to keep the seat shifting to the minimum, I'll just roll into this. It's very high level. I think a lot of these slides are probably something that you've already seen, but I just want to set the stage going into the next August meeting and where we might want to go. On the first slide, there is the total revenue and buying power trends. The total revenue's been increasing. This is total state and federal, this table is, since 1996. There's been some dips in like 2006, 2011, 2016. Most of those dips were the federal side of the house. As you can see, the buying power has been decreasing, as we're showing here, since we started tracking that in 2010. This is about the time that WYDOT went into preservation-only mode. This is when we're really focused back on not growing our existing system and just preserving what we have and trying to maintain as much as we can. But as you can imagine, we just, from a financial standpoint, we just can't do as much as we've done in the past. The next slide is the 30-year federal aid revenue history slide. So this is just straight federal dollars. As you can see, it's been steadily increasing. And for the past 10 years, it appears that we're keeping up with inflation. The last funding bill, the IIJA, we saw an extra $100 million a year for the first couple of years. We did see a $30 million drop in the last year, and we'll probably see that same $70 million going forward till the end of this extra, going into this end of the funding bill, which ends in 2026. With that 30% increase roughly in federal dollars, we were seeing also couple that with 30 to 40% increase in inflation, or 40 to 50% increase in inflation. So thank goodness we got the extra money, or else we'd really not be able to do as much as we did even with that inflation. So I am a little bit fearful on the federal dollars to that the next transportation bill. We're going to fight like heck to try to maintain what we have. I'm very not optimistic that we'll see an increase, but not going to be from a lack of effort at trying with the federal delegation. We're working hard with them. We're pretty fortunate that they're positioned pretty well in DC on some of the authorizing committees, that hopefully we can ensure that rural America doesn't get hit with decreases in the federal formula or the federal share. And so that will be, we're working that right now. There's reauthorization coming up, like I said, in 26, but the Congress right now is working hard to try to get out in front of that and have something put in place prior to the 2026 end date of the IIJA. So we're heavily involved right now with our delegation as well as the authorizing committees out in DC. The next slide is the 30-year detail state revenue history slide. You know, from 96 to 2008, we saw a pretty steady increase in stateside funding. But for the last probably 15 years, say from 2010 to current, it's been pretty flat. Obviously, inflation has increased, our buying power has diminished. And like I said before, just the amount of miles the road that I can preserve is not the same amount of miles that I can do today. The next slide is the pie chart, anticipated revenue and carryover slide. As you can see, this is a total agency perspective. We're roughly 50% federally funded. The pie chart's just slightly over 50%. The next large revenue stream for the agency is the fuel tax, about 116 million. Next is other, and I know other is kind of wonky, but in the other is the WyoLink. We have $4.3 million a year in general funds from WyoLink. We have authority to render service, so when we partner with other local governments to do work, they give us what it costs for their part of the project. Damage repairs, so when, say, something happens and a vehicle caused it, we can go after their insurance to help us with the damage repairs. And then obviously, like on a, just say insurance recovering. And then we do have the ability to gain interest earnings on our funds that are sitting in the account waiting to be put on the ground, and then carryover. So we have we're fortunate that we don't have reversions, so we have carryover. So at the end of a year, anything that hasn't been spent or obligated gets to carry over, and we get to reprogram it in the next fiscal year. Registration fees are about 11% of our overall revenue stream. Royalties, the federal mineral royalties, those are capped statutorily, sitting at the just shy of 8% of our revenue. Vehicle fees is something that has been worked on, nearly $12 million a year on that. Severance fees, that's about 6.7 million. That's capped statutorily. And then our driver's license fees is about $6.3 million a year.
Director, just for our edification here in the committee, based off of just this past session's bill, can we get you to update these last couple of slides that you've gone over with your anticipated income, what, our fiscal impact, what we saw, and have you send that out to the committee between now and the next meeting so we can kind of get a rough estimate and this committee can get a grasp on what kind of an impact that bill really made for you guys. I know you're not going to actually receive that until July 1, and I get that. But the anticipated income of what you guys can crunch those numbers would be really helpful for this committee.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that. And yes, we can definitely do that. It will probably say fiscal year 27, just so you're aware. If you recall that bill, we can start collecting, or at least they're always collecting, but from July 1 to June 30 of July 1 of this year to June 30 of 26 is that collection that it gets distributed to us, not the general fund. We will not see those dollars until the end of 26, so it'll be programmed in the fiscal year, our fiscal year, WYDOT's fiscal year 27. So we can definitely put that on there just for reference, because I was very much in curious on that as well. From, we've always talked that we were 70-30 agency, 70% on the road side of the house, right? Because that's where these funds need to go to the roads by the statute. But we were 70% federally funded, 30% stateside funded. With the 70 million in House Bill 33's passage, we're at 60-40. So it did bump the percentages the way they are now to 60-40, not 70-30. So.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, something too that I think would be interesting to let the folks know, and maybe the committee already knows it, I don't know, I didn't know it, but anyway, buying power, that's a very interesting question. Will you explain the buying power when you use federal funds on state highways versus using federal funds on highways that have already had the NEPA process? You explained it to me. Will you just kind of give them an overview of when you have to use federal funds on our state highways, what it does to your buying power?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative. Thank you for the question. Utilizing federal dollars, obviously, it's our lion's share of our road funding, so we have to follow federal law. Anytime there's a nexus of federal dollars or federal land, we have to follow the stipulations that come with that NEPA process. Not to say that the public process isn't always followed regardless if NEPA's there, but that's a significant one. And so it does slow down the project. It does cost some extra. There's some also contracting side of the house from, if it's federal dollar, there is no in-state preference ability to do that. And then from a, I wish I would have prepared a little bit more. Dennis or Keith can probably help. Maybe you even have some assistance on this, Taylor, on what, when we use federal versus a state-only funded project, what are the cost savings on that is the question that you're asking. And you and I just talked about this, and my brain's going a little bit slow on me.
Okay, yeah, well, if you want to answer your own question, sure.
Thank you, Chairman and Director. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were telling me it approximately costs us another 10% to do the same project if we use any federal funding on our state roads. So that was the buying power I was referring to, is instead of the state actually allocating money to our own state roads, we're having to steal money from federal highways and putting it on our state highways, and it costs us an additional 10% along with all inflation, et cetera, et cetera. That was really kind of the point I was getting to.
And I think to encompass basically what you're saying, make it a little bit even easier, is when we use the federal money, the federal strings that are attached to that federal money make the money not go as far. And when we use it on a state road is probably the easier way to say it. And it becomes a little bit harder, almost trigonometry discussion at that point, as opposed to just straight algebraic. So, Director.
I concur.
Okay. Representative Larson.
But Director, however, that's been consistent. That's not a new phenomenon, that the federal costs about 10% more. But the chart you're showing shows that with that in place, that our buying power has decreased. And you indicated earlier that that's really a reflection of inflation. But then your chart doesn't show that, or it appears that there's more than just inflation, or maybe the inflation isn't consistent across the consumables. And so I had a question on that buying power too. Are you seeing certain aspects of construction that have gone up higher than the inflationary rate, like the cost of crude, the cement, or there's some components of that are exceeding the inflation rate that's caused an accelerated loss of buying power?
And so I don't disagree, but again, I want to make sure that we're keeping this at a higher level because Dennis not being here, if that's something that you would prefer to punt on, but I don't disagree, Representative Larson.
This has nothing to do with funding. This is just understanding.
Okay, I understand. I just don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Representative, you are correct. A lot of the buying power has just been diminished with the inflation side of the house. We're seeing 1,000% increase in consumables that are within some of these projects across the board. And I'm somewhat fearful for the next couple of years where we're going to go with some of the tariffs that are going to be implied. A lot of the steel right now is really concerning. There's a Buy America, Build America. We're all 100% behind it. Totally agree. We're worried about some of the industries being here quick enough to help, decrease some of that potential increase in those materials that we need to build. But I can definitely come forward. I know I have another presentation that has exactly a lot of where we were seeing the significant ups and downs from the parts and pieces that we need to build roads.
If you could get that to LSO, and then if we could have LSO distribute that to the committee, that would be really helpful.
Will do.
Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, what considerations are made for the buying power situation, say with how the monies are gotten? And you said that there's different, I guess, more buying power in certain situations, probably, I assume, for certain projects. Say a certain kind of road replacement or whatever it may be. What do you do at the agency level to do an evaluation on basically bang for the buck when it comes to these expenditures? I mean, how do you look at that? Do you prioritize? Do you not prioritize? Could you help me with that? Thank you. Sure.
Director?
Mr. Chairman, every project is prioritized based off of the need and the time in which we have to get out and perform that surfacing. If you remember, we're in preservation only mode to ensure that we are just maintaining what we have. We've done very, very little expansion projects on that to the point where I'd like to get us at some point. If we had enough money, we could do cost benefit analysis on, do we do a mill and overlay that will last 7 to potentially 10 years, or do we do a reconstruction and go back with 6 inches of concrete or 8 inches of concrete that could last 20, 25 years? Right now, we aren't doing a lot of that cost benefit analysis because we just don't have the funding to help us make that decision.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it almost sounds like you need an efficiency study. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Another?
All right. Director?
Mr. Chairman, I have no idea.
You don't have to agree. There was no question there. There really wasn't. Director, let's go ahead and move along. And
Sure.
I think we were into the federal revenue slide. It looks like slide 12.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Revenue. I like
Mr. Revenue. This pie chart, obviously, you see the lion's share of our federal dollars goes to the highway improvement program. We do have some pass-throughs that, like the FAA, some of the projects that we have, that's passed through to the local airports to help them with their construction. Same with federal transit. A lot of those dollars go to the local governments to help them with their busing and mobility within there. There are some other pieces in there, but in lieu of time, I'm just going to slide through that unless there's any questions on where we spend the federal dollar.
Committee? Seeing none, please continue.
The next one is just some details. I just wanted to make it very clear with everybody that what we can and what we can't spend federal dollars on. We can spend them on, they're very specific purposed funds. Obviously, federally eligible roads. Most of our roads are federally eligible. There's not that many roads that we have that aren't eligible. The other thing that I can say is that the federal dollars cannot be used on rolling stock equipment, building, our vertical building costs or maintenance, utilities. It cannot be used for payroll unless it's specifically tied to a federally eligible project. And then our routine highway maintenance, so think of patching, potholing, pothole patching, signage, snow removal, striping, mowing, all of that cannot be used. Federal dollars can't be used. And non-highway, non-aeronautics, non-transit project expenses is listed there. So the next one is the state revenue pie chart. As you can see, just shy of 30% is our fuel taxes. It's 116 million. Again, I don't necessarily need to go through that. I already talked a little bit about it, but you see the amounts of dollars of our state side. where it's coming from. Obviously, we'll be able to add in another piece of the pie with the House Bill 33's passage. Then the next slide is just a detailed perspective where we spend our stateside funding. Pretty much anything that the feds can't pay for, the state side pays for. So the Highway Patrol ports of entry, like I said, routine maintenance that is performed by our crews is where we spend those state dollars, and salaries, again, not related to a specific project. This is where we purchase all of our rolling stock and all of our equipment as well. And then any vertical opportunities, building, construction, maintenance, utilities.
Committee, any questions on state funding details? I have one. Director, can you just clarify for me, because the first bullet point that you say you have there, Highway Patrol / port of entry, is that only the port of entry that you're using that for? It was always my understanding, and maybe I'm just completely backwards on this, and I have two former appropriators that can help as well, but the reason that we have the Highway Patrol underneath the Department of Transportation is because we get federal funding for a portion of that. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not 100% sure on the funding of the ports of entry. Is your question? I'd have to ask Rodney on the
And if
specifics
that
of
gets
that.
really deep into it, we don't have to go here. We can do that next time around. But maybe. There we go.
Mr. Chairman, Rodney Fryer, Budget Manager of WYDOT. The Port of Entry funding is state-funded with the Highway Patrol. It's all under a law enforcement umbrella. And as far as federal funds for the Highway Patrol, it's a very small percentage that we get through MXEP grants that help them with specific purpose items.
And it, just to follow up on that, that's a requirement that it be housed underneath the Department of Transportation in order to qualify for those. Is that right?
Mr.
No, that-
Chairman, I'm not aware if there's a requirement that the Highway Patrol be under WYDOT. It's just where it currently lives.
Okay. What's that? We'll get to that. Okay, thank you, Brian, appreciate it. Committee, any further questions? Seeing none, okay. Director, I think that puts us into, you have the emergency response update next underneath yours. Do you want to continue with that before we go into?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take the 2 minutes that I have to switch seats and let Keith get up here. I am on track, by the way.
All right, we got you. Keith, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Committee. Keith Fulton, Chief Engineer, Wyoming Department of Transportation. So I was going to go through emergency response updates. This is on slides, starting on slide 16. And this just goes through the emergencies that we've dealt with over the last year and where we've had to get some special funding to help for that. So first I'll start with Teton Pass. This is Highway 22 from Jackson over into Idaho. So on slide 17, just a little bit of a calendar of events there. June 6th, we started to see some road damage, closed the road, reviewed, said we need to monitor, reopened it. June 7th, we had a mudslide, which is about 3 miles away towards the Idaho side, that closed the road. And then on June 8th, we had the unexpected long-term failure of the road, and you'll see the picture there of the slide that did happen that took out the entire highway. June 10th, we said we think we can build a detour to get the road back open. June 28th, we had it back open, and great work from our district and our contractors and our locals to get that done. So we were able to get the road back open. July 8th, we issued an RFP for CMGC and alternate contracting. So that was something the legislature gave us ability to do just a couple years ago. So we selected Ames Construction Company. So they came in, sat in with us. They had designers and people with our designers working on the solution. What materials can we get? How fast? What can we do? August 12th, our Transportation Commission awarded the first work package, and that was to get in there, clean up the landslide, start doing some stability of all the slopes so they could do all the work. September 12th, we did the final work package. That was the final fix. So we came up with what we're going to do, and then they started to get to work. They worked through December 16th. Snow finally kicked them out. They just couldn't move snow anymore. And they're back actually in there now working, building the fill back up.
Pretty impressive work.
Yeah, they did
Nice-
very well.
nice work
So
there.
next page, just the mudslide. The mudslide occurred, this was an event that happened several thousand feet up the mountain, came down, put several feet of mud over the top of our highway. So we had to clean that all up. We decided to put in a box culvert, and you'll see the picture there. And so that box culvert now is in the main channel of that flood, and that mud's going to come. And by experience, we know this will continue to bring mud down on a yearly basis, probably during runouts, runoff and high moisture events. So we put a box in that'll take that flow underneath the highway, so we'll hopefully close it. And that was about a $1.4 million fix. Again, worked very quickly with the contractors to get that built and done.
Keith, before you go on there, none of that was blatantly considered in the STIP, correct? So this was all something that was cost shifted from other projects in the STIP, moved away, is that correct?
That is correct. It wasn't in the STIP.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about the funding on that?
Yeah, I could touch upon that now. So, so we were able to, once this happened, we got an emergency declaration from the governor, and from that, and then we could go to the Federal Highway Administration and apply for what they call emergency repair, or ER funding. And then that's a pot of funds that we can get reimbursed for all the costs.
Excellent.
And then, so the first 180 days, they'll actually reimburse at 100% to get the road back open. Then after that, then it goes to our standard federal share split.
Excellent. Thank you. Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, on this culvert, I guess my question is, do we have any similar situations in the state of Wyoming that, before this catastrophe happened and we had to go through these repairs? Have we identified anything else that falls under this kind of classification of a need? Or what are we doing to avoid this from happening again somewhere else? That's my broad question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, Senator, so we have had other locations, so up on the Cody to Yellowstone Highway, we put in a box, and actually we had to go and put another bridge in because it got so, the mud just kept dumbing down and much more than anticipated. And so we have these. These are hard to do because most of these slides happen way up out of our right-of-way and several thousand feet above the highway. And so our geology program tries to monitor and look for these in locations. But a lot of times we have to react, unfortunately.
Mr. Chairman, if I could follow up on that. On the Teton slide itself, not the mud slide, we had monitoring going on that big fill. I mean, when they created it, we had monitors on there. Up to like a month before, there was absolutely actually it was like 2 weeks before the slide, they monitored it and there was absolutely no movement in that hill. It went from no movement to slid in like 2 weeks. But they are keeping an eye on it, trying to, from a safety perspective, be able to see if they start to see it slide, then we know how to react to the safety perspective. We have slides. One thing that I didn't realize, we have slides every year on our roads, especially up in the northeast part of the state. We're working on a realignment right now because of a slide on I-90. But we're trying to be as proactive as possible to get out in front of it so we can design and plan it, put it into the STIP, as opposed to it's an emergency on the STIP. And then how do we react from a financial standpoint? Luckily, we had the federal government assist us on this one. They didn't have to. They don't have to. And we could be left holding that, which means that we just cut projects out of the STIP to replace that revenue stream to ensure that we can get it done. Because it's not like we can't fix this.
Yeah, and just follow up that we have inclinometers all throughout the state on areas that we think, or we've seen some movement. And so we do get those and we monitor theirs on a constant basis. So we're watching for those, and if we do see movement, we're trying to react as fast as we can.
Senator Kolb, follow-up?
A follow-up. I understand that, okay? Obviously, what we were doing didn't work. So my question really is what are we doing differently now than we were doing before? That's my question. And maybe we're not doing anything differently, but my question is in a very broad way, what are we doing to get ahead of these things before they catastrophe? Obviously, we can fix them, right? I understand that. But it has a huge cost for everything. And my question is, are we doing anything differently than we were doing before to monitor these types of situations? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, Senator, so we are continuing to monitor, and we do actually have a few projects within our STIP to address some slides that we see that are moving and we're concerned about. And so we try to get them in once we think that it will be almost a catastrophic event. So,
Okay.
but again, we can only do so much with the funding we have to preserve our roads.
Representative Larson, you good? Okay. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's also try to be, I'm going to be very frank here. Let's make sure that as we're going through this, we recognize that the process in which we also had a changeover of chief engineers, assistant chief engineers was all happening at the exact same time. We had a lot of work going on, and I'm going to just come out here as the chairman again and say thank you for the amount of incredibly hard work that you guys did do. And Mother Nature plays a very major role in what happened there. Knowing Tom, as long as I've known Tom Dehoff as this was going on, was up every single night for 3 nights straight, getting calls on the movement of centimeters on that road. Every single night at 10 o'clock, getting phone calls. And so appreciate the work that you guys are doing. And I appreciate the senator's concerns of what are we doing to make sure that we don't have this. And sometimes we don't have the availability to fix Mother Nature and her destructive fury. So Keith, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 19, we had several people ask, well, why don't you just move the road and change that? And so as you look through Wyoming Highway 22 is about a 10% grade, pretty steep. For us, that's about the max we'd like to see. There may be some places it's higher. Our detour, as the director had mentioned, and went to almost 12%. And we did have some trucks that had some troubles on that, especially on slippery roads. But if we were just to connect the 2 spots there, it would have been a 23% grade. And so, or we'd have to build another horseshoe. And so the decision was made, let's put it back and let's fix it. And so we don't have to deal with this again in the future. So moving on to page 20, this is just what we did. So as mentioned, we did the 2 work packages. That first package was temporary shoring and soil nails to stabilize the slopes. It was about $11 million job. And then our final work package includes a lot of drainage. Now, this was a water-induced, what we think would cause the slide. So we put a lot of drains, a lot of drainage rock in there. We strengthened the foundation. And then we used a new process for us. It's foam glass aggregate, or FGA. So this is it's an aggregate made out of recycled glass. It comes in about 2-inch pieces. It's just like aggregate, but it's got a very light weight. So we used 4 feet of foam glass aggregate, then we'd put 4 feet of soil on top, and then 4 feet of foam glass aggregate to make us build in these 4-foot lifts up to get us back to where we want to be to build the road. And then that has baskets in the front, so you can see the stair step and how they're building that out there now. And that was about a $30 million repair. And as we said, that we did get federal emergency repairs for this one. And actually, this one, we were actually to request some money up front, and we did get some advanced funding to help cover this at the very beginning. So that was the overview on Teton Pass. Any questions?
Any further questions on the slide? Seeing none, please continue.
Thank you. Next one is the Green River Tunnel overview. So on February 14th, we did have a multi-vehicle crash that took place in and out of the tunnel. We had 26 vehicles involved, 10 passenger vehicles, 16 commercial vehicles. Because of the fire, 8 of those vehicles were completely destroyed. Unfortunately, there was 3 fatalities in the accidents. And then due to the fire, we closed both lanes of the interstate and had to detour traffic immediately through Green River while we worked on the scene. On the next page, again, a little bit calendar events there. February 15th, after the fire was put out, we were able to go in and start inspecting the tunnels, decided that the eastbound tunnel was fine. We can put traffic head-to-head in there. And then by February 20th, we did have traffic back into on the interstate, head-to-head through the tunnel. It's down to a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. We have actually had to close it a couple times. We've had the barrier hit, and so we had to go realign it. We had some problems with one of our asphalt crossovers. It was an older one. Once we started putting all the truck traffic on it, it blew up on us. We had to go in and fix that. When we first did this, we had a 10.5-foot load restriction, wide restriction. Then we started seeing some of those bigger trucks come in, and they would just really slow down and really cause backups. So now we've gone to a legal half-wide only to go through this area. Unfortunately, the detour is through the town of Green River, and that's not an easy thing for them, and so we thank them for their patience. But when we do have the detour going, we're making sure we're driving it every day. We're making sure the road's okay, and if there's any potholes or anything that needs to be fixed, we're addressing them as soon as we can.
So question on that, as you guys are working on the process of, we're fixing this right now, what does that look like long-term? Because I can't imagine that the truck traffic through those roads is not causing long-term impacts. Is that something that the state is working with local powers that be to say, we're going to be working with you guys to replace Main Street or whatever it is that's going through there, because I'm sure their road is getting beat to live in tar.
Mr. Chair, that's actually a whiteout road.
Okay.
So it was designed to handle traffic.
Okay.
And so, but there's been patches and things done for utilities. So, our district is working with the town, and we'll make sure that
Excellent.
we got that thing.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, Senator Copeland.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as a, and I realize that's a YDOT road going through Green River there, but the town has been concerned about, and I don't know if it's justified or not, and that's why I'm asking this question, about the damage to that road and just how it's going to be taken care of if there is damage. So could you please explain publicly on what would happen if you discover there's damage to that road and how you would handle it in the event there is? I'm not saying there is, but could you please give a little bit more explanation? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I guess another way of asking that is the damage that this is causing right now going to bump the replacement of this up to the STIP level, and it's going to have to be replaced at a sooner date rather than later? Because I've heard similar concerns.
So, yeah, Mr. Chair, so yes, well, our district looks at it all the time, and so they say, and for the most part, it's in pretty good shape, so if we have to do some, either, at some point, if we have to do a STIP project, we'll add it into the STIP, or we'll cover it with our maintenance forces to make sure that the road is in a good condition.
And what does that look like currently as the STIP comes out every year? We get it
It's
there?
currently not in the STIP, but we are working on our 26. I'm not sure if the district put anything in on this coming years. But I'm assuming right now that they haven't, that they're going to handle it through their maintenance forces.
Senator, is that good enough for you? Okay. I share the same concerns. I've actually received quite a few phone calls in the same area. I think there's a lot of concern of when they actually determined what the expected outcome of how long this tunnel is going to be closed, there's a lot of concern of what this is going to do to that main road. But there's also a lot of truck traffic deviating from that main road as well, and just what that's going to look like to the town's budget if they have to end up taking care of this. So I'm happy to know that this is a YDOT road, and I think if we can continue to keep this committee apprised of what that's going to look like in the long term, and if there's even any discussion at the commission level on whether or not there's movement needed.
As a follow-up,
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, so just a commitment, right? And I assume this is the way it is, that if there is damage that you've evaluated, you will take care of it on that said bypass route. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And it's your road, so as Co-Chairman just said, so thank you. We can,
Okay, we're on sheet 23. And so we are able to contract with a company called Clean Harbors to begin cleanup work. So on March 17th, they got in there. They had to remove all the burnt out vehicles. We had concrete damage to the tunnel liner, and many of the light system was destroyed. And so they helped remove some of that. Their work was completed on April 6th. April 7th, and we were able to get our full staff in there. So we had YDOT inspectors, we had FHWA people with tunnel experience. We hired a consultant, WSP, which has a lot of tunnel experience. They came in, NTSB was along, and we did a full inspection of the tunnel. We were able to do a LiDAR, or a 3D scan of the tunnel. So we had done one previously, so we did one afterwards so that we could see if we could find any places that may have concerns if there was any type of movement due to the fire. And from all that, we're now working on a final inspection report. We're doing some cores. So we're grabbing cores of the tunnel liner and the roadway. The roadway is damaged, and trying to figure out what are the extents of how far we have to go and replace. And so we're working through that now. And our whole hope is to have this open before the winter season, and and we have to do a whole new lighting system in that tunnel also. This was also an ER project based on, because we did get a declaration from the governor, and we're currently sitting around $1 million spent on the project. And then as noted, we'll monitor and work on that detour as needed. So any questions?
further
on the
questions
tunnel?
on the Green River Tunnel? Again, I'll just commend from my position, amazing fast work. I also thank the colonel, pass on our thanks to I believe he was an off-duty highway patrolman that was rescuing people during that day. And I don't know if that publicly got acknowledged, but please pass that along from me and the committee that we really appreciate the heroism of that as well. And thank you guys on the engineering side for doing all the fun stuff that you guys do to make sure that our roads are safe especially going through that tunnel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On to slide 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So lastly, just a couple items. We had several wildfires. They were in many counties across the state. And our maintenance guys just jumped up and really helped. We had to do a lot of traffic control as we closed highways. So, and then, to move traffic and then to allow the fire incident people to get in and out. And we lost a lot of signs, fence, and guardrails throughout. This was also got an emergency declaration, so we were able to get FHWA ER funding on that. And we've spent around $1 million right now on replacing fences. Two of the big ones for us was the house draw fire, so I'm on sheet 26. That was in August. That was about 14 miles of fence along I-90 was burnt. And our maintenance guys out of District 4, they grabbed all kinds of teams from throughout the maintenance throughout the district, and they came in and replaced fence so that they could, if they needed to get any type of livestock or anything along that whole section to get that done. And we had to do, signs, and we lost snow fence and all kinds of other things that we're working on. And the last one was the elk fire. This was on US 14, just outside of Sheridan. Closed for 24 days, and that one, we lost a lot of guardrail, and that we wanted to make sure we had that guardrail back up. Steep grades coming down, a lot of campers and trucks using those, and so we wanted to make sure, on a safety perspective, we had that guardrail fixed. So our guys were great, get on there, replaced 8 miles of guardrail, 38 traffic signs, and I just talked to them this week. They just finished doing all the right-of-way fence that was burnt, and now we're in a monitoring mode. Again, with the fire, and you've lost a lot of that ground vegetation. Now we're open to mudslides and erosion. And so we're going to monitor that, and if that does come down, we are able to use some of the ER funds to help fix that also.
Go, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Keith, have we, as we're replacing guardrail, are we replacing guardrail to the newer specifications for EV vehicles, because some of the guardrails don't protect very well for low center of gravity vehicles, and so are we upgrading our guardrail systems as we're replacing these?
So, Mr. Chair, Senator, so we are installing guardrail that meets current standards. Now, EVs are a different story. That is now being worked on. There's a lot of research going on in how to address that, because some of the guardrail may not meet with those lower vehicles. So there's testing being done. But we installed what we use throughout the state.
Yes, Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess kind of as an overall picture here, whether it be the Teton slide or the Green River Tunnel or all these fires, how do you feel like the coordination has been and response has been between the state and say county and local emergency response?
Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, that was going to be my last point here, is that we've had great coordination. I can't say enough about the WYDOT teams and how they've come together, and people just, this is a new challenge and they jump up. But, working with the locals, they've been great too. People they want to get the roads open, they understand, and so they're helping there. And so we've had very good coordination throughout on all these events. Green River, Rock Springs been involved in the Tunner fire, their fire departments, police departments, and so great coordination throughout. And it's been nice. People always rise to the occasion, and we've seen that through the state.
Committee, anything further? I think that finishes it up for the engineering side, right?
Well, I was going to have another on the road projects.
Oh, okay.
So just a little bit of
Perfect.
overview there.
Well, so I'll just say this, welcome to the chief engineer spot with all those things happening all within
Yeah.
your first couple of months.
And it's all happened in District 3 for the Teton and the Green River. So our district engineer has been pretty busy trying to coordinate all this, so.
Excellent.
So before I just jump into what's going on this fiscal year, we thought we'd just give a quick update on the STIP and what it is. And so the STIP is our State Transportation Improvement Program. This is a 6-year fiscally constrained program approved annually by our Transportation Commission. So we anticipate how much funding is going to be available for every year for the 6 years. That gives us a budget. And then we start developing projects that address the needs on our highways to do that. Our current STIP is for the years 25 through fiscal year 30. It's about 500 projects at roughly a construction and design cost of almost $2.8 billion. This is the projects that we anticipate to design and let the contract. A lot of our projects can take several years to design once you start looking at if you have to deal with wetlands or right-of-way or any type of things like that. It takes a long time. And so the 6-year STIP helps us schedule these projects, and then we set up when we think we'll have the design done and get them let to contract. It also includes anything that has any type of federal funding involved with it. So we do get help with our federal funds to help do our bridge and pavement inspections. Our bridges are inspected at least once every 2 years. Some are on other time, and then pavement inspections about the same thing. We try to get the whole, all the highways at least driven at least once every 2 years. And these are both consultant-based. We have consultants that help do this. But that gives us a condition of all of our highways and bridges, and from that we go into an asset management system. This asset management system looks at deterioration rates, funding into the future, and comes up with a list of projects or candidate projects based on those conditions. And trying to send that we can, if we do, this is the best thing to do at this time for the least, give us the greatest value for the least amount of money, is really what we're trying to look through. The STIP also contains planning studies, research funding, aeronautics, transit, TAP, or our active transportation, so pathway projects. So a large document, about 300 pages or more. There's a link at the end of your handout that you can go in if you want to go get a copy of it, or we can get you a paper copy if you'd like. Within the STIP, it gets modified monthly. A lot of times projects are moved, we have to add new projects, things come up unforeseen, and so that information's in there also. So project selection for the STIP, as I mentioned, it's very condition-based, very data-driven. It's just not a couple old engineers in a dimly lit room coming up with these projects. It's a team approach. And so we're working our district folks along with our headquarters and designs. We're all working together to come up with the best mix of projects to preserve our system. Again, it's all condition-based. So everything starts with our bridge and pavement. That's our biggest cost. That's where most of our money goes to. And so using that asset management system, we get a list of candidate projects. We have more needs than we have available funding, so we have a huge list of candidate projects. The districts then pick from those candidate projects to set up the projects in the STIP. And there's a big list of items that we consider. You know, we have our maintenance guys out there driving the roads every day, so they have good, what do they have to patch a lot more? Is there a bridge inspection joint that is failing that they have to work on a lot? And so that'll help put information to the districts to help come up with these projects. We're looking at traffic volumes, the type of trucks, the amount of trucks. Of course, safety is a big thing, so we always look at the crash history. Are we seeing hot spots? Are we seeing now places that we need turn lanes because we're seeing more accidents? We're looking at material sources. Where are we going to get materials? Where do we have to haul from? We're trying to look at a little bit in the head for developments. You know, are we seeing housing developments where we could see a lot of trucks real fast and then they don't, then it's just vehicles? Or are we seeing distribution centers where we're gonna have trucks all the time? We look at the environmental needs also. Are we seeing a lot of wildlife crashes? Do we have a migration corridor? The geohazards. And so this is something that the senator asked about. You know, we do have a list of rock slopes and rock slides that we do monitor, and we try to put funding to them as we need to. We look at waterways. So do we have to do with irrigation, canals? Are we crossing rivers, wetlands, things like that? So a lot of that goes into that. It's all budget-based and resource-based. We also make sure we gotta have people that can design these. We hire consultants as needed to make sure we're getting these designed in time. And then do we have the resources to do all the construction administration at the same time? And then with the federal money, there's a few federal strings, and some of these have performance measures that we have to meet also. So as we look through this, and we know that we're probably seeing the increased costs are keep going up, needs are going up, and our revenues are flat, as the director mentioned, that we're gonna have to start doing a little bit more project prioritization. And so we're looking at developing a system to now look at a statewide look to prioritize projects every year within the STIP. And so on pages 30 and 31 are just a couple pieces of data that we're looking at to help do this. And so the first one is the map on the interstates. Where are our populations? And as we look through, we did a 20-mile a buffer on either side of the interstate. And we found that 70% of the population of Wyoming lives within 20 miles of an interstate. So we know they're using those roads a lot. And so that, you know, that puts a priority to help us make sure our interstates continue to be in good condition and the roads that tie into them. And the second one is a map, and I think the director shared this with many people. This is what we call the high-low priority map, but this is just a map that we put all the locations within the STIP for the fiscal year 25. And so anything on the blue is the NHS or the National Highway System. That's our largest pot of money from the federal government, and that money can only be used on the blue routes. Anything in the red is our non-NHS, And we said there's our lower priority, because the NHS, that's going to be your higher traffic volumes. That's the highways that are moving people and freight through the state. And so as we look through this prioritization, we may have to look at how do we deal with the roads, the red roads? And, you know, look at the ones that are the higher volumes for economic development, tourism, those type of things. And then we may have to start prioritizing projects on those as well. So a neat thing we're starting to work on. And so with that, Mr. Chair, that's the end on the STIP. And if there's questions, or I can just jump into what we're working on.
Committee, any questions? I will say I got a image I can't get out of my brain, and that is a whole bunch of engineers in a dark room trying to figure out what they're doing, so.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the discussions that we had during the session in regards to, you know, whether or not we deliver more funding or how we approach that, one of the issues that was brought up was there's a sense that maybe we have better conditioned roadways in Wyoming than other surrounding states. Can you speak a little bit to that? And it's kind of a big question, but can you talk a little bit about what the general condition of our roadways are, particularly the NHS roads versus, you know, maybe some of the others?
Mr. Chair.
Please, Mr. Fulton.
So we can get some look. The NHS is, we have to report the NHS to the federal highways. And so they have a system where they compare all the states. So we did look at the surrounding states. And there's some places we're better and there's other places where we're worse. So we're all very similar. But we do hear it all the time from drivers that Wyoming's highways are much better than anywhere else. So we are looking at how we rate our roads and making sure we are appropriately managing and looking at the conditions we're seeing.
And I'll just say, it's always really tough to hear that conversation, at least personally, sitting on this committee for 8+ years. I'm sure the appropriator's been dealing with this for, 15, 20 years. When we compare ourselves to everybody else and say our roads are great, it still doesn't change the fact that the people that drive the roads that need the updates on a regular basis, still go, well, that's great. It's kind of like being the skinniest kid at fat camp. We still have some stuff that needs to be taken care of. So appreciate the work that we're doing. But I think it's also critically important that we don't want to be falling behind. And that graph that we've seen numerous times of that degradation slope, we're getting to the point where we may not be able to be in as good a condition as where we have been, so.
So, Mr. Chair, just road construction projects are at the bottom of page 28. So about 300 projects are in design phase at any point. Again, we have that 6-year STIP. Some of these projects take longer to design, so they're being worked on. For this year, for fiscal year 25, about 101 projects we're anticipating to let contract worth just over $400 million. Between the projects that we are multi-year projects that have to be finished up this year and the new ones, we think we're about to have about 131 projects under construction that could impact traffic throughout this construction season. Just for your information, we had 4 large projects over $20 million. 3 of them were on the interstates. Those have been let. And the last one is our wildlife crossing project just south of Kemmer. That's about a $31 million project will be let in July. We did get a nice grant to help pay for a lot of that project. And there's also funding from the Resource National Trust and Game and Fish and private donations, so.
How much of that, Mr. Fulton, have we tapped into any of those wildlife conservation plates, the funding out of that? I mean, it's not an insignificant amount of money, but it's also not, and when you're talking $30 million, I know we haven't raised that off of the amount of license plates we sold. So any idea how much we pulled out of those?
Mr. Chair, we haven't used any of that funding.
Really?
As of yet, yeah. We were able to, with all the other funding sources, cover this project.
Awesome.
So it is available. We're looking at it for future wildlife projects. There's just some estimated quantities. I won't run that, just some information for you, about 480 miles of pavement that we can work on with the STIP projects. And then at the bottom is just our inventory. This is just the highway side. This doesn't include, items with patrol and driver services and other aeronautics. But 6,700 miles of centerline roadway, 633 is probably an exact number if you want it. And so if you look at the interstates, that would be the length down the median. So if we go to a lane mile, that's about 16,600 lane miles highway that we have to preserve, about 6,000 bridges and structures. 42,000 culverts, 800 miles of guardrail, 12,000 miles of fence. We have almost 500 buildings that we need, got to house people to design, we have to house equipment, mechanics, about over 4,000 pieces of equipment that we use to help maintain our roads. And then I just saw this the other day, and I thought it'd be interesting, we do like striping, that's a very good safety feature, and we try to keep up, so we do about 22,000 miles of striping every year within that. So, Mr. Chair, that's all I have on the engineering side.
Okay. Committee, one thing that I want to draw your attention to is that 476 buildings. Prior to, I don't know how many of you may have even seen our original agenda. We were planning on meeting up in Sheridan, and we were planning on having some tours of these facilities. And I would encourage this committee, if you have a chance while you're here, touch base with the director, even just going over to the YDOT facility over here, just off of the north side of the interstate. It's kind of eye-opening to see what we have for our buildings. And I would say if we're here and you have the opportunity, definitely go visit these. Unfortunately, we had to cut those out of our timeframes to do a little bit of that educational side of things. But if you are interested, I'm sure the director and Mr. Fulton would be more than happy to show you what we have available just in this vicinity, let alone what we have across the state and some of the other places. So, okay. Any further questions? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Riveting engineering discussion. Thank you very much. Riveting. We had one engineer that was up here talking about it. All right, I think that moves us on. Committee, how are we feeling? We've got 45 minutes until our next scheduled break. How's everybody feeling? We want to take a break at 10 and come back? Yeah. Okay. I'm hearing that, so we'll take a break here. We got 2 minutes to take a break. I'm just kidding. Take a break, 15 minutes, come back at, let's just call it right at 10:15. Got a quorum, counting. Yep, I got a quorum. So we're moving along. 1 minute ahead of schedule here. And it just flipped, so we're right on time. Yeah, it looks like we are up to, I'm guessing the operations update. We kind of bounced around there on our agenda, but I see Nate here, so we've got the WildLink is what I'm guessing he's here for, so. Mr. Smolinski.
Chairman, Nate Smolinski, I'm the Chief Technology Officer over at WYDOT, and I was asked to just provide a little bit of an overview and an update on WildLink operations. So, Mr. Chairman, we did have a handout, 2-pager that we presented. The first page is actually what we kind of call a fact sheet, and it's just the one item I really want to put your attention to is going to be the numbers towards the bottom of the sheet here when we talk about who uses WildLink. And what we're seeing here is, on average, about 8 to 10% increase in usage annually. And we're bringing on roughly about 10 to 12 agencies per year are what coming on, which is pretty remarkable considering that there's not that many agencies left in Wyoming that are not on WildLink right now. And we currently have roughly about 550 across the state. We call them agencies, but they're also kind of entities as well. Some of the things that we're seeing there are, I use an example of search and rescue. We might have a county where search and rescue falls underneath the sheriff's office. A new sheriff might come on board and says, no, we're going to make you your own agency. So we're seeing a little bit of a split, which gives us some numbers and increased in usage there. Mr. Chairman, the next page we have here is just a map, and it's a statewide map, and I'm just going to talk through a couple things that as they apply to the key on the right-hand side here. The first one we see is a new site. We don't have any yellow boxes showing a new site, but underneath there we have the new sites online. And Mr. Chairman, just as an example, these are the last capitalization project that we did where we added 16 new sites across the state. They are all online right now as of 2024, and we're seeing increased usage as well as some coverage gaps that have been closed in on there. We have 2 locations that have a lowercase a in there, and these are 2 sites that we actually are constructing right now that were done with ARPA funds. The locations of those are going to be in northern Sheridan County at the Kearns Wildlife Refuge. We work with Game and Fish to be able to obtain some property up there where we can build a site. That'll be coming on board. It's kind of ironic, we can't have a crew in there until the end of May because it's protected. So once the gates open up, our guys will be going in with all the shed antler hunters at the same time. So should be pretty interesting for those guys. And then also we have a new site that's going to be built just south of Saratoga, outside of encampment. And that's a co-locate that we're doing with Union Wireless. We're actually going to be on their tower. The other items that I want to bring to you, kind of moving through the key there, we have a distinction between what we call a PCE site, which is an acronym for Portable Coverage Enhancement. Those sites are generally built right outside of medium to large communities. The idea is to provide in-building coverage with handheld radios. The core sites you can kind of see are scattered around. Those are the big towers that are on top of mountains. When WildLink was originally built, it was designed to basically provide what we call mobile radio coverage. So think of highway patrol, driving down I-80, we have to make sure they can speak. As the system kept growing, the need came, we have to now provide coverage in the communities. That's where those PCE sites come on board. The other item that we have here are the blue triangles, and we refer to these as locally owned sites. And just to kind of give you a little bit of breakdown, what these sites are, they were funded and built by local communities, be it the city or counties, but they are WildLink sites that tie back into our core. Those sites remain open for all WildLink users. And just a little bit of a breakdown, Gillette has built 2 of them, Natrona County, Casper, 2 of them as well. We have 1 in Converse and the second one that's just got approved to be constructed as we speak. And then we have 4 in Laramie County. Teton County has actually built 4 of them in the last 2 years. So we've got about 13 of them that are on there right now. These communities actually take care of their own, what we call service maintenance agreement contracts. And Mr. Chairman, what we're actually doing is we're in the process right now. Their contracts equal just under $300,000. With the general funds that WYDOT received, and we're paying for our own statewide contract, we're working with the communities to use some of those general funds to cover their contracts that are strictly for the radio site towers. The reason why we're doing this is we're trying to basically build and show the importance that this is a statewide interoperable system. As long as those towers remain open for all users, and YDOT continues to receive the general funds, we'll be able to pick up those contracts. We're not managing the contracts, we're just going to fund the contracts. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for any questions before I move into another update here.
Go to Representative Larson and then Representative Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with this as we see, like the federal agencies and private entities, is there a fee that we assess them for use of the WildLink system?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, we do not. If we go back a few years before we received the general fund, we were issuing what we call informational invoices. This goes back to about 2016, when I actually came in as the WildLink manager. We were instructed to show local agencies, if YDOT were to charge for your usage, this is what your bill would look like. And we did those on a quarterly basis. It was based upon usage as well as inventory. We do not charge right now. That's what the general funds came in to take care of. So our service contract that we have with Motorola is being covered with general funds.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. So my recollection of that history was really that report was really back to the local governmental agencies, cities and counties. But where we see these other non-state entities using that seems to be a cat of a different color there. And I was just curious if we had, and so I guess my question here then is, you're making the assumption that falls in just like everything else, that it's free use.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Polinsky.
So on the federal side of the house, what we have with the feds is basically they have provided us with the frequencies that we use for the WildLink system. And also if we speak about BLM or Forest Service, we are not being charged to be on their property. So we have multiple sites that are on federal lands that we don't get charged for. The feds can charge private entities. They could technically charge us as well, but they're not because we're allowing them onto the system. The local entities, the majority of the local entities, think of a private ambulance company. So even in Cheyenne, we have,
AMR.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They're a private entity, but they're sponsored by a larger government body. That's where the private entities come in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So WildLink is all towers, and I assume you've seen all these little white boxes on the dashes of most of the oil field workers now. They're going satellite. Do we have a plan and position to start transitioning to satellite? Is it something that we're going to use in conjunction with satellite? Are we going to eventually go away from towers? Is this even being talked about? Because I assume eventually these towers will be just yard ornaments and everyone will be using satellite. Is that something you guys are actively looking at right now, how to use our funds?
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
We were going to move into this a little bit, but it's kind of what I refer to as the growing technology. So one of the things that we're doing with WildLink, and to kind of answer your immediate question on satellite, we're looking into it, but satellite is not what we consider to be mission critical communications. So as an example, if you have that radio, you key it up, it's going to go directly to a dispatcher who's waiting. Satellite is not working in that way. It's not also reliable enough to handle that. But what we're doing is, one of the items that we have is a technology we refer to as Critical Connect. And what that allows us to do is connect the WildLink, what we call the core, so the system into other systems. Now, when I say other system, that's pretty broad. We're utilizing it right now to connect into adjacent states. And we actually have a team that's going to be standing up with Nebraska coming into next week. But what it also allows us to do is to work with the LTE companies. So we currently are connected to Verizon as well as AT&T FirstNet. So really what we're able to do is on your phone, you could have an app, that talk group. So let's say I want to talk to Highway Patrol right now. I could be talking to them on my phone. It'll go through the cellular network, touch the WildLink core, and it would be able to talk to a highway patrolman on his radio. So where this comes into, we're kind of merging the technologies, and I always refer to it's not like an either or, right? I refer to it as we're taking all this technology that's out there, we're merging it together to try to give people the best tools possible. So we're looking into it. We've actually had conversations. There's other states that are starting to dive into what the satellite comms look like. We're taking a look at satellite to actually some of the WildLink sites but we could position a satellite link there to make sure we're staying up as a backup all the time. So there's talk there, but we're not quite there yet.
Representative Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to kind of follow up on Representative Tarver's line of questioning too. So are there areas in the state where you do not have coverage that satellite coverage might actually help to bolster that a little bit?
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Without a doubt. Take a look behind you. So where we're going to go ahead and stand up a tower, and let's say some of the mountains or the Bighorn Mountains, we have a tower up there, but it's close to the highway. If we were to try to have what we call 100% coverage across Wyoming, we would still have to probably double the size of the system right now, just because we start to get into those terrains. I mentioned Teton County with 4 sites. Because of the terrain in Teton County, you couldn't build one tower to cover everything. Even though geographically you could, in theory, you're not going to be able to do it because of the terrain. So there are some options there. We work with some of the providers. There is T-Mobile, for instance. They're actually working with Starlink as we speak, where you're going to be able to, you might have seen some of this. So I could dial 911 in the mountains and it's going to link automatically to a satellite. When I mentioned about how we're merging these technologies, we're trying to see how we can bring WiLink into there, because we want our first responders not to have multiple communication tools on them. How can I give you one device that you could do everything on? So that's what we're trying to do.
Committee, any further questions there? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, probably the next one I want to just touch base on real quick here is we have our biannual report due to this committee, as well as to the governor's office, coming to you at the end of May. And we use this opportunity just to kind of talk about some updates on what we're doing in the system. We also talk about some of the accomplishments, achievements we made, some of the challenges and forecasting. Hey, we know this is coming. How are we going to plan for this? So just to kind of talk real briefly about what we're going to have here. ARPA funds, as a reminder, we received $35 million in ARPA funds. And right now, across about 7 projects, we have 2 projects remaining. And those 2 projects are the 2 sites that I mentioned. They'll be finished this year. And we're starting to upgrade about 1/3 of the system on the microwave. We asked roughly for about 90 million. We got 35. So what that's left us is the microwave system. We still have some upgrades that have to take place there. We're going to be in discussions, taking a look at long-term life cycle planning and how we're going to be able to handle that moving forward, using some of the general funds, but also what is that number going to look like? When we originally looked at it, when I say about 30 million, we were thinking about 15, probably about 3 years ago. We already heard about inflation. We're probably predicting closer to 30 at this point. But we'll know more about that as we're meeting with Motorola towards the end of this month to do some of that life cycle long-term planning. The other one we talked about, we give a breakdown of what our system maintenance agreement, so the contract that we pay to Motorola, we show a breakdown of the services and how those funds are dispersed across there. So we'll have that information and details for this committee. And then I mentioned some of the stuff that we're doing on Critical Connect. We'll also talk a little bit about how we're working with the vendors, the providers, to make sure that our users have the best possible pricing they can to buy radios. 2021, WiDOT went ahead and did an RFP, and we purchased radios for the agency, but we made that contract available to state and local agencies. We just executed another one in 2025. We don't necessarily need to purchase anything else for the agency, but we're doing this to make sure the locals and other state agencies are getting pricing that's below NASPO pricing right now. So we'll continue to do that. And it's not just Motorola. We opened up as a bid for multiple. We had 2 people respond, Motorola and also L3 Harris. So both of them can work on the system. We're just trying to make sure that we're staying competitive the best way we possibly can. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for any questions on that side right there, if there are any.
Do my appropriators want to talk about WiLink? It's been my favorite subject over the past 10 years, so.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I've kind of been happy not have to talk about it.
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in the past, I guess, what's the current state of happiness with the WiLink system when it comes to local entities like counties and cities? Just, it was always kind of a mixed bag of happiness and dissatisfaction. Where are we at now? Could you give an overview on just people's satisfaction entity-wise across the state of Wyoming?
Mr.
Thank you.
Nate?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I don't necessarily have like a fact board I can show you, but I can tell you from the feedback that I receive. So I went back to 2016 when we were sending out informational invoices. And just on a personal note, I had just become the WiLink support manager. And it was the first week I was in this job in Cheyenne, I get told we're going to send these invoices out. And my name's going to be on the bottom of it. So it was a pretty good way to meet people. Since then, we turned off a lot of people. We had a lot of folks that basically said, do not use WiLink, because they were afraid that not only were we going to invoice them, but we were going to backbill them. So once the general funds came in and we were able to say, you're not getting these invoices anymore, I can honestly say we've kind of turned the page a little bit. We see more agencies utilizing it. We see some counties that said, don't touch it at all, to now they're actually embracing it and moving it. I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit about Uintah County as an example. When I came on board, their entire usage was 19 minutes of use for an entire year. If you think about that, that's like a technician testing radios. They're now actually within our top 10 users. So we've seen this turn of events that's happening. We have more folks that are embracing WiLink as their primary communication system, not just their backup. I can go into a county commission meeting and I'm not getting beat up. So previously, that's pretty much what I would do, is I walk in and I pay for the sins of my predecessors. So I think we're getting to a better spot. We're seeing use. I mentioned how we're doing the Critical Connect and how we can kind of merge cell technology. We know that there's agencies out there, and our volunteer fire folks, they have a communication budget that might be a couple $1,000s a year. They may only be able to afford 1 or 2 radios, but you know what? They've got these. So now they're able to come on board. We're seeing school system do the same thing. You can have an administrator that he can now get a hold of the sheriff's dispatch via his phone, but that's all traveling over the WiLink system. So I know I probably gave you a long answer there, but I feel we're in a much better spot than we were previously.
Representative Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if we could go back, just a question on the ARPA funds, time sensitive. So 2 questions. Will we have all of that used up to where we don't send any back? And were you able to get everything done that you wanted to with those funds?
Nate?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, we better get everything done. So it's our intent that we're going to be pushing as hard as we possibly can to really crank. We're going to start having our crews and the Motorola crews and the other crews that we have operating, they're going to be out there this month, starting all the way through. And our full intent is it's full throttle. We've got to get this thing done. We don't want to send any money back. Did we get everything done? With the money that we had, we're going to get there. Again, we asked for about 90. We got 35, so there's still some holes that we want to fill in. Part of what we were looking for with the 90 was to complete the entire microwave upgrade. That would have been every site, but then we also had roughly about 16 additional radio sites that we wanted to put out there to fill in coverage gaps. We know where some of those gaps are. We're going to be working with the Public Safety Communications Commission to identify some of those. And kind of what the director spoke about, having a list on the shelf, should we get additional funding, here's our top 3. We want to be able to be ready for that in case we have that opportunity.
Okay. Again, I'm not going to lie, it's been kind of nice. Oh, we got one more follow-up. It's been a while since we've talked, so we've got a lot of questions.
So I want to kind of come back to the conversation with Representative Tarver and Representative Robb over here, Geringer, on the use of satellite. So as we look towards the future, do we invest in, is there a concern that we're investing in an antiquated system? Or is that the system, and I heard you say that we're not there yet with satellite, and I got that, but how much do we continue to invest in a system that may be obsolete? And do you have a feel for when that time frame may be that it becomes obsolete? I'm just trying to, I don't know that we address that part.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Part of what our job is to do with this system is to make sure that we're on the front end of it. So previous to us receiving the general funds, we were operating on a system that was basically dated to about 2014. So we were about 7 years roughly behind. With what we're able to do now is we keep it on the front end. So when some of these technologies do come out, we keep the system ready to accept it. the infrastructure itself that we've invested into it, I do not see tower-related communications going away anytime soon. It's an infrastructure that we can take care of, we can depend upon, and we do a great job in that area. So that's where I see is how our role is to make sure we're ready for the next tech.
Committee, any further questions on WildLink for Nate? Seeing none? Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll probably close. If anybody does have any questions, we're happy to show you what we have. We can do a tour. We've got sites all over the state. I know the committee has limited time, but we can also show you what we have in Cheyenne as well as Casper.
Appreciate it. With that, that's a good segue into what I was just getting ready to say. Committee, we've got 25 minutes until our next agenda item rolls in. I see our military department's out there, so what we're going to do is we'll roll right into our highway patrol update. I did receive a request to have our commissioners come up and make a few remarks. If we get a little bit of time, I would like to do that. But we also need to make sure that we have enough time for public comment. And so we'll bring our highway patrol. We've got the entire green crew here with us. All right, we've got some new faces here, it looks like. I almost called you Director Cameron. I don't think you probably want that responsibility, so. Colonel, please.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much, committee members. Colonel Tim Cameron, I'm the administrator of the Wyoming Highway Patrol. Very proudly represent the men and women of the Highway Patrol, which does not just include troopers. It is troopers, our port of entry employees, and our professional staff members, and most importantly, our dispatch team that binds us together. Over the last 2 years, the patrol has made significant internal improvements, which transfer into external performance for the citizens of Wyoming. Our focus has been on middle management, specifically supervision, increasing their training. We've made improvements into our policy platforms, our policy. We have gone completely to data-driven, intelligence-led policing, which means we equip our troopers with where crashes are happening, the causative factors of those crashes, so they can enforce specifically the places that we know through data where accidents are occurring. That is a big change. So what I've heard that coined is, you're no longer driving around waiting for something to happen. Our troopers weren't doing that, but they were enforcing our traffic safety laws here in Wyoming, but now specifically in places where we know crashes are occurring. So we track that, we look at every crash, fatal personal injury and property damage, and then bore down into that the best we can, the causative factors. So those are the things that we try to educate and enforce, work with our engineering colleagues. And then the last component, of course, of highway safety is emergency medical that responds. So with me today are some of our executive command staff. I'll let them introduce themselves, and very briefly, they'll give you an overview of our dispatch team. And most recently, we went through, it was a lengthy process, but a reorganization of the agency. And I think it will, again, to use that word efficiency, I think it makes us more efficient in a number of ways, more responsive, and it lays the foundation for being able to build the agency into the future to be responsive to the needs of the citizens of Wyoming and our visitors. Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'll turn it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves and go over that information.
Before we head there, I think we've got a question.
Mr. Chairman, one question. You talked about the accidents and being knowledgeable of them and everything. What would the fine be if I was to hit a deer on a Wyoming highway and not report it?
Well, sir, unfortunately, it would probably involve a significant fine and jail time.
Yeah.
Or at least paying the deductible.
Asking for a friend, I'm sure.
Asking for a friend. I could ask for a friend.
Colonel, what I'll do is, since we're on a little bit of limited time, I'll go ahead and just have the floor open to you and your executive staff. Gentlemen, please, at your leisure, just go ahead and go over your details. And then committee, what I'll do is I will ask for you guys to write down your questions if you have any, and then we will rapid fire those at the end of your guys' presentation.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Carl Germain. I'm the Lieutenant Colonel for the Highway Patrol, and I'm going to cover the dispatch or communication center update. I'll be as brief as I can with my remarks. Our dispatch center provides 24-hour coverage to the citizens of Wyoming. We dispatch for 9 different agencies that are listed in that handout. Obviously, the biggest agency would be the Wyoming Highway Patrol, but we also have Wyoming Game and Fish, State Parks, Bureau of Land Management, State Brand Inspectors, U.S. Forest Service, Livestock Law Enforcement, DCI, and Wyoming State Board of Outfitters and Professional Guides, which they do have one sworn law enforcement officer there. Recently, we migrated our patrol dispatch servers to the cloud, Amazon Web Services, and that allows us to be a little bit more nimble with updates and making sure that we have the latest and greatest technology pushed out to the dispatch centers and law enforcement officers that are using it. We are currently undergoing a new phone system. So we're revamping the phone system in the center, and that should be up and running middle to end of summer. And although we are not a primary PSAP, it will have next-gen 911 technology capabilities, so that will be able to accept messages, video, photos to help get first responders information more precisely and get the right resources on scene to a critical incident. Our communications center is authorized for 39 dispatcher positions. We also have 6 additional positions that are supervision. We have 4 supervisors, 1 manager, and a trainer for a total of 45 positions. Our dispatch, now this is our dispatcher total. These are the dispatchers that are working the radio. We have, as of April 1st, 25, and we're at a 36% vacancy out of that 39 positions. Since November 2024, we have received 30 applications for Dispatcher 2 and 130 applications for Dispatcher 1, which resulted in 28 interviews, and three people were hired that are currently in training. And then there's 1 in background. And then something new or a recent development was we had a former dispatcher that left, moved down to Colorado, and is in the process of returning to us. We are keeping the posting for dispatcher positions continuously open so we can improve hiring and try to get that staffing level up. The process is when an applicant puts an application in, they work with a recruiter or someone from our professional standards section to go through the hiring process. If they're successful with all of the testing, they go into a background, and then we hire them on the spot. So if we don't have a training class available, we can do a number of things, one of which is we'll put them in the center and they can start OJT. If we don't have room for that, then we can find work elsewhere in the agency until a training class is made available. And so one of the big things that happened in October of 2023 is we worked with WYDOT to help get our starting salary up from $19.42 to $22.40 or $22.68 for a dispatcher 1. And then the average salary for a dispatcher 2 was raised from $23.83 to $26.40. And that did help with a recruitment, but that's coming up on a 2 years dated now. So we're starting to see those salaries kind of maybe even out or get a little bit behind, but nonetheless, that did help with recruitment. And that's all that I have for the Communication Center, Mr. Chair. I'll be happy to answer questions at the end of this.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Captain Sean Dickerson, obviously Wyoming Highway Patrol, District 2 Commander out of Casper here. I'm going to go over as quickly as I can. Field Operations Bureau restructure. We went from 5 districts down to 4 districts. Historically, our districts were largely aligned with the WYDOT districts, but we felt we could be more efficient. Really wanted to move supervision down to lower levels and maximize boots on the ground, troopers out on the road. So reduce the districts, reducing mid-level managers by doing that, one captain and then lieutenants as well. And we're using that funding to fund additional sergeant positions moving forward. The goal of that is improving span of control for all supervisors, and then creating some clear delineated career advancement opportunities. And then, as the colonel referenced earlier, providing additional supervision and management training to all supervisors, particularly our new sergeants coming in. Secondary aspect of that was removing special projects and extra duties from our field lieutenants and captains. Oftentimes they were overburdened and doing secondary tasks that took them away from their primary role. So we've shifted that to a central special operations division, and allowing more dedicated time and preparation for those roles, as well as single points of contact, and again, allowing those managers and supervisors to be more effective in their primary role. Again, creating lateral career opportunities, largely focused on our crash team, which is our reconstructionist, investigators, and then commercial carrier inspectors and interdiction team. Our allocations were based on traffic studies, daily vehicle miles driven by the public, physical highway miles within a region, calls for service, crash data within that region. And so we did have a slight shift in personnel across the state to try and, bolster areas where the volume was extremely high, still working within our allotted number of positions. As of May 1, we have 25 sworn vacancies. I believe your paperwork shows 23, but we have, since your paperwork was submitted, we have had a couple of retirements. That's the discrepancy there. Jackson and Cheyenne are our highest, and that is largely due to housing. We've historically struggled. I started out over in the Jackson area 23 years ago, and it was a challenge then, and it remains a challenge today. 48% of our troopers have 5 years or fewer with the Highway Patrol, and 23% are 6 to 10 years. And again, that points us and highlights our need to have that field supervision out there for all those young troopers, have actually sergeants working alongside their officers. Again, a part of this process was to improve lateral promotional opportunities, improve availability to develop skill sets, decrease on-call time, and focus on recruiting and funding for continued education. If you would, in your packet, you should have a map that kind of shows some of the numbers that we have as we transition forward, and outlines our new districts and our new troop boundaries. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Captain Dickerson. Mr. Chair, I would point out to you and the committee that previously sergeants were just a senior position without technical supervision responsibilities. That has changed. So we're pushing that supervision down to the lowest level where it should be, with sergeants that are on the highways with our very young, tenured-wise troopers. So that has been a change for us and commitment. The last thing that I would present to you is a overview of our Troop O. Troop O is our executive protection detail and capital security. That is one of many no-fail missions that the patrol has. I'm sure you're aware of this, but Wyoming statute requires the administrator of the Highway Patrol to provide state troopers for security in the Capitol building, Hersler State Office building, and the governor's residence, and security for the governor. That's specifically wording in the Capitol. It also talks about when you are in session and your meetings, if requested to do so, we'll provide security for those meetings as well. I don't think we've really ever needed that, with some exception, but much for you, and you live this, of course, every day, just like the governor. You live in a risk environment by nature of the position you have. That needle has moved over the last several years into a threat environment. And so in Division O, specifically our EPD side, We've expanded our mission when requested, and we coordinate and provide assistance to visiting dignitaries in their EPD units when they come from other places to visit Wyoming. As part of the reorganization that the captain talked about, O is now commanded by a lieutenant. Previously, it was a captain, and they fall under the Special Operations Division, which ultimately a captain commands that. We have a recently promoted sergeant in place to assist with the supervisions of the troopers assigned to the EPD mission and capital security mission. We also have canine bomb detection dogs assigned to the troop, and we've recently added a trooper who is specially trained by the U.S. Marshal Service in protective intelligence operations. So he is constantly scanning the social media horizon, which includes the dark web, for any threats against the governor, the governor's staff, or the legislature, specifically any of the members. We also, under Troop O, manages and supervises the protests, which have been numerous at the Capitol, all very peaceful. Our primary role there is to ensure that those people that gather there can do so safely and effectively exercise their constitutional right to voice their opinions. And we've had no issues to speak of. Troopers in O, by policy, are expected to serve 5 years. Of course, that can change through promotion, retirement, and so on. Those troopers all signed non-disclosure agreements, and we're adamant about that by the nature of the work that they do. There is a selection process for the troopers to apply to come to O. If they're accepted into O, they go through executive protection detail training, one of the several entities that we use, mostly other states, California, Texas, Utah. There's an initial 90-day period of assessment before we determine whether we're going to make them permanently assigned to O. I want to avoid using any numbers because of the nature of what they do. It is a security environment. The table of organization has dictated a certain number. My goal is to exceed that and to expand that EPD group because of the mission that we do have, which is not just the governor's detail and his residence in the Capitol, but we also have the Hersler Building, and we also acknowledge that we have you in session or in interim meetings or anything when the body convenes. We have not had to really assign troopers to individual committee rooms, and I hope we never get there, but that is largely driven by you. Mr. Chair, that is my report on O, and that concludes. Now we're glad to answer any questions.
Okay. We're going to start over here. We'll work our way down. Representative Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Colonel, for being here. I do have a high-level question, and I'm just curious how it works. How do you guys work with the city police and the county sheriffs? Is that a working, do you guys all communicate together so you have a roadway system that requires more help? Do you guys work with our county sheriffs on that, or is this all independently operated? And is there any room there to make that work better?
Mr. Chair.
Colonel.
Representative Tarver, great question. I think we have excellent relationships with our sheriffs and our chiefs. We're always working to get better. I look at our role as a support role for them. We certainly respond to any of their requests the best we can. And honestly, they provide great assistance to us. None of us have, I'm sure, you wouldn't get any of us up here that says I have enough. So I think I've heard this Lieutenant Colonel Josh Wather once said, different uniform, same team. And that is my perspective. So we're constantly trying to be good partners, work well with each other. Communications have improved internally and externally being WyoLink. In fact, I'm attending the conference, the full conference, and I enjoy the relationship and appreciate the support we get from them.
Follow-up?
Well, Mr. Chairman, so next question, piggybacking off that question, where are the jurisdictional lines and how do you guys work together on those jurisdictional lines? Like, what's your authorities, what's their authorities, and how do you guys overlap and work together specifically in the jurisdictional aspect?
Colonel?
Mr. Chair, Representative Tarver. So jurisdictionally, Wyoming Highway Patrol has jurisdiction throughout Wyoming, and it can enforce any statute under Wyoming law and anything other than serving of civil process. That's the one exception. Now, with that said, we primarily work to enforce and do high visibility enforcement or engagement on our interstates and our state highways. If we're called to assist someone in a county or a city, we certainly do. And we monitor their channels. Like if you're working in this Casper troop, you would monitor Casper and some of the outlying jurisdictions, Glen Rock and so on. I was listening to that on my radio. So we try to be attentive to that and respond. We certainly respond when we're requested to do so if we have those assets.
Mr. Co-Chair, say we'll keep going down this way. You have something? Okay, let's go ahead and go Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you mentioned 25 vacancies. What's the impact of having that many vacancies? Are we looking at a increased response times? Are we looking at reduced services? What is the impact of that?
Hey, could I preface this before the captain
Colonel,
answers
please.
that? When I came here, we had almost 80 vacancies. So I can tell you, it's a different day today. We changed the way we recruited, and we've paid specific attention to how to retain employees. And being part of WYDOT has been a huge benefit in that regard. One of the things we did to change our recruiting was not to do what every other police agency does, which is successful for them. But for us, I think the tangible thing that we weren't selling was Wyoming. And so that is, if you ever saw any of our marketing on social media, we were marketing Wyoming. And oh, by the way, it's cool to be a state trooper in this place. And that has been hugely successful.
Captain, did you want to follow up on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Geringer, I would say, we're fortunate today, particularly on this side of the state, where that impact, as the Colonel referenced, 80, it was the entire state. Now it's more isolated areas. So in those areas, yes, it certainly has an effect on response times. What you'll see is instead of having, say you have a county, Teton County, for example, instead of having 2 or maybe even 3 troopers working that county, you have 1 or maybe even 1 on call. And so, yes, response times are certainly increased. And you may have had a second half of that question. I don't recall if there was something I missed.
Just if there's, Mr. Chairman, if there's other services that also get impacted.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I guess nothing that comes to the top of my mind, just probably delayed response times. And certainly it has an impact on our local agencies as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Follow-up?
One other follow-up here. So with the field restructuring, have you noticed some efficiencies? Is it something that really, you mentioned it used to be kind of aligned with the WYDOT districts. Are you seeing that being a more efficient kind of thing where it reduces some of the impact of those vacancies then?
Mr. Chairman. So probably too early to tell. It actually takes effect today.
You don't have actual data for us then? Go, Chair.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask on Division O, I understand, I think, you're also using contract people for instead of troopers. Is that because of not being able to fill the vacancies? I think they're former law enforcement folks, but tell me a little bit about the contract people you have and how many.
Colonel, please.
Mr. Co-Chair, yes, we use specifically SecOps Security Company to augment the security provided by WHP personnel assigned there. We have 1 member of SecOps mans our CSR, the control room, a security center with a bank of cameras, and they have the ability to communicate to other SecOp members or the troopers specifically. And then we have one that walks through the Hirschler building or may do foot patrols or outside and inside the Capitol as well. It just augments us and allows us to focus those troopers on details specifically inside the Capitol. Our detail is not where it needs to be number-wise. I would like to one day replace SecOps with troopers, but right now it's a fiscally responsible way to fill that void.
Follow-up?
Yeah. So how many contract employees do we have?
I know we have 2 working during the day. I don't know totally what the contract embodies, the total number. I know that when the Capitol is open on Saturdays, which starts again, the contract includes a SecOps employee there. Unfortunately, when that starts, we also have a protest scheduled that day, so we'll have troopers there as well. But that allows us, because we have other component parts of that mission that are 24 hours a day. So they, again, allow us to focus our troopers on.
So it's just a few people.
Yeah, it's not more than 10, and there's never that many working at one time. The maximum is 2.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel, I don't know if this is for you, but we mentioned earlier that the district shrank from 6 to 5, if I followed that right, about they used to follow the, what it is?
5 to 4, yeah.
5-4. Where did that shift happen at, number one? Like what area within the state of Wyoming did that change occur in? And then the next question I had was, you mentioned about, Wyoming state law and troopers enforcing that said law. Would they also enforce a city ordinance for compression brakes on the interstate, let's say, for an example? Is that still within your authority to enforce that? Those are my 2 questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Colonel?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Senator Kolb deferred the first question to Captain Dickerson.
Captain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Kolb, so the majority of that realignment, as far as the district reduction, happened in the northern part of the state, where we have a lower call volume and a lower allocation of troopers spread across that area.
Okay. And then second question, can you enforce city ordinance with your jurisdictional authority?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Kolb, no. We're not able to enforce city ordinances, but if there's a violation of state statute or if it's an inspector, certainly they can take action for whatever they see in violation of.
Follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you had seen a violation of compression brake ordinance, right, which is a city ordinance, would you inform the city of said violation, or how would you handle that on the interstate if you witnessed that, or would you do anything about it in a I don't know, informational point of view for say, a truck driver? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I'd call on, and actually, we have Major Ramsey, who's batting cleanup, sitting in the back as backup. His background and expertise lends significantly to that question, being a commercial motor vehicle inspector.
Major?
He thought he was going to
Come on
be able to
down.
sit back there and enjoy.
Major, if you'd introduce yourself and try to shed some light on the subject of enforcing city ordinance on interstate systems, if you could.
Mr. Chairman, Casey Ramsey, I'm the Sport Services Major. To answer your question, we don't enforce city ordinances. Like the Colonel said, is if there's a state statute that is tied to that, similar, then yes, we will do that. As far as passing through, I mean, we can certainly pass that along to the local dispatch center, but I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, we're not able to do that.
Okay. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions, a little bit different topics. So the first one is on your recruiting, and I'll throw in retention there. No comments about the compensation package that's taken place, and so I'm just curious if that has had any effect on the recruiting and retention, or if it's just solely that they get to come to Wyoming that's improved your ability to get these people here.
Colonel, there's a,
It's teed up. Mr. Sheriff, Representative Larson, yes, the improvement to our compensation package that's occurred over the last several years was a significant help. The challenge now for us is to remain competitive with our contiguous state entities and other law enforcement entities, actually. I think recruiting nationwide has gotten better from what I read and discern, but there's something that's notable to me. There are places that are giving bonuses to people coming to agencies, even some over $100,000, and they still have a deficit. So I don't think it's about money. I think it's about some tangible things. I think compensation and benefits are important, but those other tangible things that are critically important is the culture of the agency and the environment that you work in. So I think that is where we have an advantage.
Thank you. And then follow up, Mr. Chairman. So a little question on Division O. Having been in the legislature for over a decade, I've watched you, and have great appreciation for what they do, and at times have felt very sympathetic. I think that maybe, I don't know how they get to be in Division O, but I've always had a little concern that once they're in Division O, how do we protect them from us? Meaning the legislature or governor's office or wherever, when we, we do what we do sometimes, and we may come back because we didn't like whatever. Do you have something in place that kind of that you immunize them, or something that protects them from undue political influence to where they're not? Am I making sense there? I just see that could be a challenge.
Yes, sir. Colonel? Mr. Chair, Representative Larson, yes, we do have some things in place. One of the things I'll point out again is our policy is very specific to those O troopers who are specifically selected, and there is a significant selection process. And then a 90-day assessment that we can watch them work. Again, we signed that NDA. So they acknowledge a lot of the things that they overhear or come directly to them, they have to internalize. That's the nature of that job. But when it's to the point where they feel they need to address it, they do it through supervision, and it very quickly gets to Lieutenant Colonel and I, especially if it's a political thing. And then that's our level. We're the final arbiters of that and move forward. And it's infrequent, especially with the legislature, that we have any issues, honestly. For that, a trooper in Division O, especially in the EPD side of the house, you're in a high-pressure environment, working with other people that are under a lot of pressure. And we acknowledge that. And that leads to some turnover, which has not been excessive, but honestly, in that job, there should be turnover fairly often, in my opinion, especially in leadership. It is not typical trooper work, and far from it. It is a different venue. So some people do really well, and we have long tenured troopers in that division. You've seen them there. They're a fixture in the Capitol. We have one individual in particular that retired and couldn't stand it, and he's back. So, but yes, to answer your question, they have an outlet, and that's the Lieutenant Colonel and I. And they use that. And again, that is the nature of that environment. It is high pressure. You all live that too, so.
committee, any further questions? So with our getting a little bit behind schedule here, I'm just going to ask for some follow-up information for our next meeting from you guys. First, I'd like to know what the percentage of turnover is statewide for your guys' agency. And then I'd like to compare that to the turnover over the past 2 years, put it to the past 2 years, and then I'd also like to take it back to 4 years, what that turnover at Division O is. Because over the past 2 years, I can tell you, I've witnessed a very drastic turnover at that desk sitting outside the governor's office. And I'd like to include leadership on that. So anything from, I'd say, captain and below would be helpful for me. And then relocation to dispatch. I know you guys said you guys are going through the process of updating the phones. Thank you. And thank you, Nate, for getting NG 911 on there. Been a baby of mine for a little while there. So that is helpful. But one of the things that I had heard at one point was the potential relocation of dispatch because of the lease and just the conditions of their particular location right now. There was talks about bringing them over to campus. Don't know if that ever came to fruition. Just a little bit of an update on that. And then I'd also like a breakdown of what middle management movement looks like. So you guys mentioned that, I think the numbers I got were 76% of the troopers currently have less than 10 years of experience. What that tells me, that included anything less than 10 years at the lieutenant and below, I think is what I heard from there. So my concern is that means that there's going to be a lot of troopers sitting on the road for a very long time if we don't have a lot of movement available from sergeant to lieutenant to captain. And if we've already shrunk those positions and availability to move up, that concerns me of what it's going to look like in the future for some of our troopers to move along. I think that's all I've got. And instead of going through that, I can just wait for a follow-up on that, and then I can share any of that information with the committee as well. Committee, any further questions for the Highway Patrol? Yes, Representative Posey, please.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to commend the Wyoming Highway Patrol for, we've had an interagency law enforcement group up in Fremont County. And as we all know, it's really quagmire. There's some times in terms of jurisdiction. So the last 15 years, we've had an interagency law enforcement group that the Wyoming Highway Patrol has been very active and attended, as well as the county sheriff and the BIA, the law enforcement from BLM and U.S. Forest Service. So it's grown, but I just wanted to commend the Highway Patrol for making that work at our local level.
Mr. Chair, Representative Posey, thank you very much. Appreciate you acknowledging that. That has been hugely successful, and I think because of the local community and their involvement. But thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate y'all being here today. And with that, I believe we have one more piece, but I don't know that we wanted to, it's kind of up to you, Director, if you need to hit on that. We kind of touched on it briefly.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we tried to wrap all those topics all into one of the topics that we've already discussed, so unless you have anything
I just have the
specific.
funding overview is the only thing that we didn't bring anybody up from the funding area, but I think we covered that initially with your discussion, so I just wanted to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, committee, we are running just a few minutes over on our current area, and so I'd like to open this up for public comment. If there's any public comment on any of the discussion that we have heard at this point, please come forward. I'll ask you to please fill the, I thought we had 4 chairs, maybe it's just 3. Fill the chairs if you could, please, and that way we can roll through you and just play musical chairs as quickly as possible. Russell.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it's good to see everyone. Jonathan Russell, Policy Advisor for the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. I'll steal a little bit of thunder from what Director Westby said earlier. I also want to thank you for the work that you guys, that the committee did during this past session. Our comments are around funding, so we'll be very brief. I know that wasn't discussed, but we'll go ahead and get that out of the way. Sitting next to me is Commissioner Tom Ryan of Hot Springs County. He is co-chairman of our Transportation Committee, and I'll turn it over to him.
Commissioner Ryan, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I just have a brief response and then would entertain questions. I'm Tom Ryan, Chairman of the Hot Springs County Commission and representing Wyoming County Commissioners Association today. The Wyoming County Commissioners Association supports your effort to reduce WYDOT's budget shortfall, particularly concerning road infrastructure. However, when discussing this issue, it's important to remember the key role county road infrastructure serves in Wyoming overall transportation network and the corresponding budget shortfalls and limitations counties face. Statewide, WYDOT manages 6,700 miles of road. In comparison, Wyoming counties collectively maintain 2,303 miles of paved road and an extensive 15,000 miles of unpaved roads. For additional context, counties manage approximately 72.08% of all roads in Wyoming. Whether for daily commutes, business delivery, agricultural operations, tourism, or outdoor recreation, every Wyoming resident and tourist depends on county roads in some way. However, maintaining these roads presents significant financial and logistic challenges gets together tougher each year. Counties typically have staffing and equipment designed only for basic maintenance, which limits their capacity to handle more intensive construction or significant road improvements. With increasing demand and escalating costs related to construction, maintenance, equipment, labor, materials, and administration, counties are increasingly stretched thin. For your education, I would recommend reviewing the presentation by 4 of Wyoming's finest county public works directors provided to this committee last September titled County Road Conditions, Speed Studies, and Speed Limits. At the state level, WYDOT is facing a substantial funding gap estimated at approximately $400 million. This gap puts even more pressure on counties as insufficient state-level funding often translates into greater strain on local resources. Additionally, federal funding, while crucial, often comes with restrictions and matching requirements that counties struggle to meet. Therefore, as discussion progresses regarding transportation funding in Wyoming, it is important to recognize and address the interconnectedness of state and county transportation infrastructures. Ensuring sustainable funding streams at both state and local levels is necessary to maintain and enhance Wyoming's entire transportation system effectively. Adequately funding and strategic planning will not only support WYDOT, will also empower counties to adequately maintain and upgrade their road networks, thereby strengthening the state's overall transportation framework. And I'd also like to add with all the WYDOT people here that WYDOT does a great job of interacting with counties and municipalities and have a great working relationship with our people in District 5. So, you know, it sounds bleak, but they have a good relationship. But we really depend on them for major projects, especially. In Hot Springs County, we have a road that we've been trying to fix for the last 10 years since I've been a commissioner. And we finally have struggled and we're breaking ground on it currently. So, but it was a huge challenge to get it funded. I mean, it's just one of our roads. So this really hits home for us in Hot Springs County. I'd stand for questions.
Committee, any questions for the county commissioners? I'd echo the sentiments. I think we have a really good working relationship with county commissioners, and our state department does a good job. Worked well with them when I was with the state, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public testimony?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yes, Representative Nicholas.
I was wondering if we can have LSO staff make the report that was provided in the September 24 meeting available to us and just distributed amongst the committee so we can see that data.
Staff got that. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Please. Welcome contractors, or trucking.
I'm
Sorry,
trucking. Mr.
Trucking.
Chairman.
My bad.
That's all
Sorry.
right. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Kevin Hawley. I represent the Wyoming Trucking Association. Many of you know my predecessor, who's in this role for quite some time, Sheila. I was referred to as the new Sheila. I am still relatively new. I know just a smidge in comparison, but in the last 6 months, trial by fire, I've learned quite a lot. So really don't have any comments on anything we've talked about. Just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I got to meet several of you at the last time and a little bit over the most recent legislative session. And now we've got a brand new panel, so I look forward to meeting and learning from you guys and working together. Just on another comment, though, our relationship and how well I think we work together, not only with YDOT, Director Westby, his leadership team, Patrol. I can tell you, as someone new to this industry and this environment, everyone has been, I think, a team player. Any question, concern, outreach I've had, no one's been hasty with sharing information. I think we all work really well together. I'm excited for the opportunity to continue to work with you. And I just want to be a resource for you. If there's anything you need, if it's super technical, I probably won't be able to answer it on the fly right now, but I can go back, get the information you need from within our network. But just appreciate the opportunity. And again, would invite you to please reach out if you have any questions. We've got some opportunities coming up where we're bringing in for our convention where all our members get together. We'll be talking about some pretty imperative issues that are facing our industry, the state, on the national and on the stateside level. So would invite you to any of those things. Also, we're hosting this year, there's about 5 states here in the Rocky Mountain region, and it travels, this safety meeting. And we're hosting it this year in Cody. So we'll have representatives from all the state DOTs, the patrols. We'll be talking about things imperative to these industries and that all the states in our region. So we've been in the news quite a bit lately. All good things, though. I think we're working together. And again, just want to reiterate the partnerships and how well Wyoming is doing in leading this front. So thank you for the opportunity. Please reach out if you need anything.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions? Seeing none? That is a touchy microphone. There we go.
There we go. Thank you. I'm David Rose. I'm the current president of the Wyoming Towing and Recovery Professionals. I'm also vice chair of the Towing Advisory Board for the Highway Patrol. I just wanted to say and reiterate, I mean, the change in the last couple of years as far as the communication with the Highway Patrol and YDOT has been great. You know, we just had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with our members and across the state. The changes, especially with the new troops that are coming in, and then also the new YDOT maintenance guys, you know, they're covering us with traffic control. They're helping us out on wreck scenes. The troopers are open to any of our help or suggestions, and the communication has been great. I'm looking forward to working with them going forward, and also with the, this panel, you know, for any legislation that we might have coming up.
Okay. Committee, any questions for Mr. Rose and the towing? Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
You bet.
Committee, any further questions? Seeing none, how about any directives before we head into our next topic and next group of people? Any bill drafts, anything like that that we'd like to see based off the information that we had today? Yeah. Mr. Co-Chairman?
This is something I actually discussed with the department early today. Could I have Taylor come up? Taylor, would you please come up? There was an effort this past session to look at how we issue our license plates rather than on an 8-year basis, and it never went anywhere in the House. I think it's something the committee should look at because it is a cost-saving effort. And what I would like the department to do is bring us something next meeting, perhaps that bill, perhaps, I don't know, because I wasn't involved in it, but what I understand is that a lot of the states are going this way because it makes financial sense, and it's easier on our constituents as well. So that's one thing I would like to see come forward. And Taylor, if you would just say a few words about it so the committee understands what I'm asking for.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman. Yes, so over time, at one point, many of you may know that we did do license plates every year, then it went to every 2, then the 3 to 5 to 8, current 8-year cycle. There was an effort last year to potentially reduce or get rid of, eliminate the replacement cycle. So you'd essentially just have the same plate until it was not legible anymore, and then you just get another new plate, at that time. I certainly can work with both of you guys and the LSO staff. We can start putting together some information regarding what the potential cost benefits of that might be, some of the other logistical things that may come with that. But I'd be happy to work on that, and I certainly can do a summary of the bill. That bill was actually far more extensive. It actually changed some of the way that vehicles would be registered and some of the process things there too. So certainly be interested in talking that through with you. We'd probably bring our county partners into that discussion as well.
Just going to say, I think that's a good idea, but I will direct LSO as well to make sure that if we bring that forward, we extend to our county treasurers, as there was, that's ultimately what killed the bill.
And I'm actually not interested, well, I'm interested, but I'm not looking to bring back that same bill with those same issues. I'm interested in the concept of not having to, like for my license plates, they sit in my cars sit in my garage. It could last 20 years. Why replace them? It just makes financial sense, I think. And that's all I want to get to. As far as registrations, that part of it could be there or could not be there. I don't know. But I agree, the counties need to be involved.
Mr. Chairman, one last thing, and Senator Pappas as well. This summer, we're also anticipating trying to do a business analysis of the actual plate plant itself and whether or not it even makes sense for us as a department to continue doing that operation. We are unique as a state in that most states, if they do it themselves, they do it in their prisons. It was pulled out of the prisons about 2000 here in Wyoming, and we do it at WYDOT. So that'd be something too that may be closer towards the last meeting. We may have some information there too, because especially if we go to a longer cycle, maintaining the printer, the facility and all of that, it may be better to offload that to a private party, and then you would just do it on a contract basis. So I believe we could tie that into this request as well.
Committee, any further questions? Any other directives? Anything we'd like to see? Yes, Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And obviously, I don't know if it's the right time to bring this up, as we didn't have a discussion. But I think given the national issues that we're facing with English as being the primary language in a commercial driver's license, and the questions that came up previously yes, we could enforce those regulations within the state of Wyoming. I never got a definitive answer if we do. it seemed like we could. I don't know if we're doing it. There was some confusion about the national directive as happened a few presidencies ago with, I think it had something to do with NAFTA, making it not a requirement to have a rudimentary ability to speak English. I think for the sake of safety in our state highway system, it's becoming more and more important because of the problems with conveying hazards. So I guess I would like to have a discussion about, I don't know if that would how you would phrase it, but to have it a requirement with you driving within the state of Wyoming with a CDL license that you do have a rudimentary understanding of the language, of the English language, for safety's sake.
Okay. Committee, I know there was a bill drafted on that a few years ago. We had a discussion on that. I think that's what Senator Kolb is referring to. So staff, if I can have you guys research, I think that was 2, maybe 3 years ago, bring that bill back for our next committee hearing, and then Senator Pappas.
So I do know that the Trump administration just issued an executive order on this issue. So I would ask WYDOT to bring what that executive order is doing and how it would affect us to the next meeting.
Okay.
Just a follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to bring it up. I'm sorry if I didn't do it in the right timing, but I think it's certainly timely that it's discussed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think that's a good directive. We'll have that discussion. Senator Anderson?
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to compliment WYDOT on the ugliest license plate we've ever seen in the state of Wyoming, and I'm proud to buy one here in July. Thank you very much.
And I totally got the sarcasm in that, but I will tell you, you're looking at the poor man that had to make that decision, and has to make that decision. And Taylor, I'm going to go on the opposite side and say I actually do like it. So thank you. Yes.
Myself, hideous.
You just can't win, Taylor. You just can't win. So Representative Larson?
Mr. Chairman, if we're going to have that conversation on speaking the English language in CDL, I think we need to include the intrastate CDLs as well. And so for our ag users, our ag producers that are having trucks that are using intrastate CDLs, similar conversation.
Yeah, I think that'll be a bigger topic to discuss, and I absolutely think that we'll get into that and, certainly look at what the executive order that was just presented, what the implications are of that. One of the discussions that we had during that time frame was we already face a massive shortage in truckers, but I think that discussion is now being outweighed a little bit more by the safety and security based off of what we've seen in our own state here recently. So Senator Cooper?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to add to that a little bit on the interstate CDL. We've got a good program in our community colleges to train underage CDL drivers, 18 to 21. But there's no provisions for training students from just outside of the borders of the state of Wyoming. And I understand the division there, but could we add to that discussion the possibility of for example, at LCCC or at Northwest, that we can draw some of those out-of-state students in and participate in this interstate training? That question was brought to me by a young man who is very close to our county commissioner in the room here, and it just makes a lot of sense. We're missing a lot of potential drivers, either interstate or just across the state lines, and educating them, and it's part of this same program, I think.
Okay. So staff, I think will probably, at that point, probably want to reach out to, I think the two locations that were mentioned were Northwest Community College and LCCC. Potentially have them brought in just for some discussion purposes.
Mr. Chairman, it's basically the whole community college system, I think, is involved. I don't know if they are here in Casper. I believe they are, but yeah.
Well, so what we'll do is we'll just say the Community College Commission, reach out to them, find out who has a CDL program, and if we have any of those people with CDL programs, let's discuss that with them. And then Kevin, I think probably have just a pretty good understanding you're going to be front and center at our next meeting. I mean, new Sheila.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, hate getting in front of a microphone. This could be dangerous. I know we've got a time crunch, so I'll be as brief as possible. We did talk earlier on my presentation about some of our meetings coming up. English proficiency is huge right now. The executive order from Trump, Secretary of Transportation Duffy, it's signed. FMCSA is issuing the ruling in the next 60 days. I look at my partners here at the state and say, I don't know how you guys are going to figure out how to enforce it. Good luck. So conversations are forthcoming. Brilliant points, Representative or Senator Cooper, on under 21, 18 to 21 on the CDL. I mentioned we're going up to Cody with our kind of 5-state region here. We're actually going to be working with Northwest College, touring their facility, learning how Wyoming is leading in this with the community colleges. But we're also talking with Eastern, a gentleman down there named Ed Kimes, talking about some of the challenges with the under 21, where I could have a driver 20 years old and he could drive from Torrington to Jackson, no problem as intrastate, but he can't go 15 minutes over to Scotts Bluff, really kind of penalizing rural communities and borderline communities as well. They're actually discussing that at the national level in DC on the House side about the potential of opening that up. So everything you guys are talking about, I was kind of champion back there. Heck yeah, those are all the things we're talking about. So I do invite seriously, if you have interest, you want to learn more, these are all the things we're going to be talking about end of May at our convention, bringing in speakers, as well as up in Cody. Anytime you need anything, I'd love to be a resource. I see Representative Tarver, I know we're going to be talking. There are some challenges even with our current CDL schools at the community colleges, but it's very promising the way we're all working together and communicating to resolve some of these issues. So sorry to add more to the conversation, but I'm really excited to participate. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you. All right, committee, I am going to cut us off. We are well over our time frame. I do apologize. We're a half hour past. And so is there any further public testimony? Seeing none and no further directives from the committee unless we have a directive, Senator?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to take up this time. It just kind of came to light when we had this discussion about community colleges and CDL training. In the past, we've had the ability, or we did have the ability for owners, operators of said large trucking companies to do their own training program. Now that's gone away. And the problem we face is that these community colleges are very expensive to get those folks trained up there to get a CDL. And they used to have a program that they could be involved with in a trucking company to certify, say, driving a large bus, a very large bus, that they had a program that they were certified to oversee, to certify the drivers that drive basically for them. And I wonder if there's a conversation we can have about bringing back that program for that certification with these larger business entities to certify their drivers instead of going through this very, very expensive process of using a community college for very specific driving purposes. And in particular, I just bring out the large bus industry for transportation. So I would like to investigate to see if that's a possibility, if we could do that.
Okay, committee, I normally would say, let's go ahead and investigate this, but that is well outside of our management council directives and something that we were tasked to attack. And with our limited scope of time that we're going to have over our next 3 days worth of meetings, I'm going to pull that one back and just ask if you are interested in that. Certainly work with our partners, certainly work with interested parties and potentially bring that as an individual bill. So, committee, any further directives? Seeing none. Staff, you good with us on YDOT and directives thus far? Okay. Committee, we're going to break from our, I see everybody else out there. We're going to break from our agenda here 20 minutes early. What we're going to do is we're going to break for lunch now. We're going to come back early. So we're going to be back in here at 1 o'clock. So we'll start a half hour early and hopefully the senators can kick our butts and put us back onto time frame because I did not do so well today. So with that, we are going to recess and we'll be back in here at 1 o'clock.